From a family of fishermen and farmers to the true immortal of water and virtue, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Quanqing. Li Quanqing looked at the boy who had wrapped himself like a hedgehog with a magic talisman, and his emotions were mixed. Can you do whatever you want if you have money? Come on, buddy, why are you standing there? Li Quanqing called out, and endless strength surged from his body. This is the power of the bronze armor talisman. The effect of this top grade magic talisman is really amazing. The bronze armor that is manifested is not only powerful in defense, but also can bless the body and increase one's strength several times. Li Quanqing felt that with this bronze armor alone, he could go head to head with a physical cultivator in the middle stage of key refining. After a moment of silence, Li Quanqing decided to test it out first. Fire Phoenix Palm. He waved his palm, and flames burst out from his palm, turning into a red phoenix that soared into the sky, burning the air and distorting it. Li Quanqing tilted his head and pointed his fingers, manipulating the seawater around the arena to turn into a tornado and gush out together. Water Dragon Technique. A sea blue water dragon quickly took shape, baring its fangs and claws, spewing water to extinguish the flaming phoenix, and a large amount of water vapor rose up. This guy, his attainments in magic are also very high. Li Quanqing felt quite difficult. With a thud, he shot out like a cannonball, almost turning into a red jade giant, smashing his fists angrily. Bang, bang, bang. More than a dozen millstone-sized rocks fell, bringing with them a whistling sound of fierce wind, with an astonishing momentum. Li Quanqing is indeed a genius in body refining. He was as powerful as a tiger descending from the mountain, smashing the falling rocks into pieces, and finally punched the light shield hard. Ding! Exclamation mark. On the surface of the golden light shield, the light flashed like water waves, making a deafening sound, but it successfully blocked the attack. Looking at the 5 layers of golden light shield, Li Quanqing almost had the urge to curse. This kind of rogue fighting style, is he a turtle? The movement on this arena was too loud, and the eyes of many elders were attracted. Dragons and tigers are fighting. They are all good seedlings cultivated by Elder Kunli. The elderly Kunshin said with a smile. He was a hunchbacked old man. He looked very kind. He is just a little capable, not as good as the elder's grandson. I heard that Quanqing is going to the upper sector practice. Li Kunli smiled but didn't smile. Of course, my son is valued by the elders of Shuhua Sword Sect. He has practiced kind and swordsmanship, and has already established a foundation. A middle-aged man in a water blue robe next to him spoke proudly, with a goatee and a feather fan in his hand, pretending to be elegant. Young people should not interrupt when the elders are talking. Li Kunli glared at him. Although he was only a dozen years older, he was of higher generation. Li Yumio's eyes widened. He wanted to refute, but didn't know where to start. He was as depressed as a fathead fish. On the ring, Li Quanqing threw punches like rain, finally wiped out the first layer of golden light, sweating profusely from exhaustion, and the reaction force made the bones in his body buzz. Well done, keep it up. Li Quanqing cheered him up, his words full of encouragement, and then took out a few golden shield talismans. Li Quanqing. The expression on the face of this taciturn young man has begun to twist. Fortunately, in the public eye, Li Quanqing is not shameless enough. He has already judged the enemy's fighting level, and has a plan in mind. Now, let's fight openly. Li Quanqing shouted righteously, waving his fist, and choosing to be a rough King Kong. The surface of the bronze talisman fist, plus the blessing of 4 layers of golden light. This punch is powerful and heavy, like a missile. A terrifying sonic boom broke out in the air. Li Quanqing's face changed instantly. He didn't expect that when the guy hiding in the tortoise shell came out, he actually had a huge force. Bang! He flew backwards at a faster speed, spitting out a mouthful of blood in midair, and hurt his internal organs. Li Quanqing's mana roared in his body, and he used some force discharging techniques to fall to the ground. He no longer dared to be arrogant, and took out his magic weapon, and went all out. He put on a layer of jade-like scale armor, and the fiery red weapon pattern condensed into the shape of a lotus on his chest. His eyes were red as blood, causing the fire spirit between heaven and earth to riot. Jade armor. Li Quanqing could see at a glance that this was a privately customized high-end magic weapon with many fire-attributed materials added. Fortunately, it's just a top-grade magic weapon, and the increase in power for body refining monks is not exaggerated. Li Quanqing touched the water dragon pendant on his waist. There was no need to reveal this trump card yet. Before the big competition, he cleaned all the talismans and magic weapons he had opened. The method is very simple. Cover your whole body and pretend to be a monk from a poor small family. Sell the things to your own Quanqing pavilion, and then you can swagger out and use them. Although the method is very crude, no one will go into detail about this kind of thing. The ticker lighted again, and under the background of armor, they all looked extremely powerful, like a battle between giants. This is a battlefield that truly belongs to the physical training. The terrible aftermath that erupted would scare even the cultivators of the 7th level of key training. In the end, Li Quanqing won the competition again. He had too many talismans. Even when Li Quanmo exhausted his mana and physical strength and was about to collapse from exhaustion, there were still several layers of golden light covering his body. I lost. At this time, Li Quanmo calmed down instead and lost openly and convinced, although you borrowed external forces, this is the real battlefield. It's only about life and death, winning or losing, and you will do everything you can. I am not as skilled as others. Li Quanqing was embarrassed by the praise and smiled innocently and shyly. If you like, I can sell you a few talismans. Li Quanmo was somewhat tempted, but he touched his empty storage bag and finally fell into bitter silence. Let's talk about it later. He waved his hand and jumped off the ring neatly. His back was free and lonely. After this competition, Li Quanqing really entered the top 10. The Jade Sea Tide Rising technique is in my hands. As if sensing the boy's good mood, even the heavens are helping him. As soon as I returned to my own fish pond, I saw the jade water pythons coiled on the reef, using their slender snake tails to reach into the water to catch big black fish. They have been playing for a whole day. On the foreheads of 2 of the spiritual pythons, brilliant balls of light swayed and shone like abundant fruits. His Li Quanqing rubbed the cold heads of the pythons and took the ball of light in his hands. Harvested a jade water python in the early stage of key refining, and rewarded a jade water shuttle, broken, of the best magic weapon. Harvested a jade water python in the early stage of key refining, and rewarded a water dragon technique experience group. In the storage bag, 2 jasper-like shuttle-shaped boards lay together, reflecting each other, rippling with the moist and bright light of the sea. Li Quanqing was about to take it out to study it, when he suddenly heard a sword sound coming into his ears. The sound was clear and stirring the sky. He looked up and saw a young man stepping on a golden sword across the sky. He arrived in the blink of an eye and slowly landed outside the fish pond. The man had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and he carried a sword case on his back. He had handsome features and was dressed in a white robe that looked like an ethereal fairy. His silk stockings were covered with dust. He looked like a sword fairy who had walked out of an ancient painting, free and easy among the clouds. The man glanced at the boy indifferently, raised his chin slightly, and spoke slowly. I'll give you 1,000 spirit stones, and I want you to lose to Li Quanqing. Li Quanqing. Brother, did you get the wrong script? Chapter 52. Green Water Shuttle. Looking at the arrogant man in front of him, Li Quanqing had already guessed his identity. The famous top-grade gold spiritual root, Li Quanqing. Here are your 1,000 spiritual stones. Take them. Li Quanqing threw out an open storage bag, and a trace of spiritual energy emanated from the mouth of the bag, which was full of precious light and seductive. Looking at the white spiritual stones, Li Quanqing's palm hidden in his sleeve couldn't help shaking. Damn. Met a big fat sheep, brothers. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Li Quanqing made a decision in an instant. His name of King Liu Xiaolangjian was not called for nothing. He sneered. His eyes revealed 3 parts of ridicule, 3 parts of coldness, and 4 parts of indifference, and he coldly spat out 2 words. Get out. Li Quanqing's eyebrows twitched. No one dared to say such words in front of him for a long time. Very good. You have successfully attracted my attention. Li Quanqing sat on the fishing boat, slowly taking out powerful talismans one by one, and filling the cabin. He shook a golden and crisp talisman, which made a rustling sound. The top grade Vajra talisman can summon a 7th level key refining Vajra puppet as a guardian. Do you think Li Quanqing can withstand it? If you want me to lose to her, you can. You have to pay more. Li Quanqing looked at the Vajra talisman and felt that the problem was a bit tricky. He and Li Quanqing were childhood sweethearts, and they had promised to be together for 3 lifetimes. However, his father looked down on the girl's background and wanted to find a good match for him. He selected several legitimate daughters of foundation building families. Li Quanqing had no choice but to find a way to send her to the championship throne of the family competition. In this way, Li Quanqing's branch can restore the status and treatment of the Li family's legitimate bloodline, and the obstacles will be much smaller. You don't think that everything will be fine with a few talismans, do you? Li Quanqing said coldly. The elders have agreed that in all future competitions, each person must not use more than 15 talismans. Hearing this, Li Quanqing couldn't help but clench his fists. Targeted. This is a naked targeting. I will report it to the foundation building cultivator. Oh, the man in front of me is the great-grandson of the foundation building cultivator, so it's okay. Li Quanqing took out the water dragon pendant again. What if I use this? With Li Quanqing's eyesight, he could naturally see the extraordinariness of the jade pendant. The powerful fluctuations contained in it even made him feel fatal. This kid, how come he has so many good things on him? Li Quanqing had the urge to rob him, gritted his teeth, and still acted calmly. I can also use this amount of spiritual stones to buy a powerful magic weapon for Quanqing. Then add these. Li Quanqing took out all the magic weapons on his body, the green scale shield, the green carp sword, the stone spirit seal. He even demonstrated the Gengjin Sword Art of the superb realm, with amazing killing. I don't want much, 2000 low-grade spiritual stones, to ensure that Li Quanqing wins the first place in the family competition. Li Quanqing patted his chest loudly, saying that he got value for money. Li Quanqing looked suspicious. Are you out of money, or do you want to default on your debt? Write me an IOU. Li Quanqing put his palm on the hilt of the sword, tightened and loosened it, and repeated the action several times. In the end, he still resisted the urge to draw his sword, and wrote an IOU in frustration, vowing never to deal with this person again. Take care, come often in the future. Li Quanqing waved the note, smiling so much that his eyes narrowed, and his smile was particularly bright. A large amount of spiritual stones given away for free was simply pie in the sky. Anyway, for him, there was no difference between first and second place. It was still the best to put the spiritual stones in the bag. Good things come in pairs. As soon as Li Quanqing left, a green water python entered the mature stage. Harvest a green water python in the early stage of key refining, and reward a top grade magic weapon green water shuttle. Incomplete. Buzz! Exclamation mark. Finally, the fragments are gathered. The 3 incomplete green water shuttles were placed together, and they actually made a buzzing sound automatically, trembling slowly, trying to merge into one. Snap, snap, snap. With a few crisp sounds, a magical instrument in the shape of a shuttle boat was truly formed. It had 2 pointed ends and a slightly round belly, like a date pit that had been magnified 1,000 times, and could accommodate a person lying inside. Whoosh! Li Quanqing got into the green water shuttle, activated his magic power, and slowly infused it into the control center of the magical instrument. The green water shuttle floated on the water and trembled slightly, and instantly rushed into the seawater at an astonishing speed, leaving only a thin white wave behind. The azure blue hull gradually became transparent, allowing Li Quanqing to fully see the scenery and the waves outside, as if completely integrated into the sea. Except for the cramped space, it was like lying peacefully in a coffin, and everything else was fine. It was fast and quiet, consumed little magic power, and could also enjoy the scenery. It could automatically filter the air, and had strong defense. It was indeed a top-grade magical instrument. After Li Quanqing had enough fun, he floated out of the fish pond, and sat on the reef to study it carefully. As a magical weapon he had never seen before, the green water shuttle had a unique refining technique, which gave Li Quanqing a lot of inspiration. 3 pieces of top-grade magical weapon level fragments can be transformed and assembled into a top-grade magical weapon after delicate mosaic. The 9-layer lotus-shaped structure of the green jade armor seems to have the same effect as this refining technique. Li Quanqing touched the smooth and warm green water shuttle, and his thoughts collided with each other, and there were all kinds of fantastic ideas to manipulate water magic. Although he became a refiner by getting free, the knowledge really entered his head. With more initiations, he felt that his understanding was increasing. The more you use your brain, the smarter it is. After the resurrection match, the top 10 martial arts in this family competition were finally decided. Li Quanqing also broke into the top 10 with his powerful ice magic. The smile on his face was simply unbearable. It's a pity for Li Quanqing. He disdains to participate in the resurrection match and directly withdraws from the competition. He stops at the top 16 and decides to leave the family to practice hard. The next step is the various competitions of the 100 arts of cultivation. This is much simpler and most of them can be finished in 2 or 3 days. This period of time can also be regarded as giving the top 10 plenty of time to rest so that they can compete for the final winner. Taking advantage of the gap, Li Quanqing thoroughly studied the green water shuttle and felt that his eyes were opened. In the end, he was full of confidence and stepped onto the trial platform of the equipment refining competition. Happy National Day everyone. Holidays, holidays, holidays. Chapter 53, Jade Scale Shield. There were not many people participating in the weapon refining competition, only more than 20 people, all of whom were weapon refiners under 30 years old in the family. One after another, the black iron-like weapon refining tables were moved to the shore of Yulangton and were surrounded by the crowd early. The Li family is supported by weapon refining. For the noble and mysterious weapon refiners, the clan members are born with a filter. Therefore, this competition attracted a lot of people, all wanting to watch the excitement. Come on, brother, that's a Tanghe pill. Li Quanqing was still wearing a water blue dress, smiling gently and pleasantly. Her eyes were like a pool of autumn water, and she was generous. She handed over a bag, which contained a raised fire spirit bird, which had a gentle personality, and could assist in weapon refining. Thank you for your help, junior sister. Li Quanqing took the spirit beast bag. He had come into contact with this firebird earlier, and it was very easy to use. Maybe I should also raise a fire spirit beast, or find a spirit fire with water attributes? Li Quanqing thought to himself, and walked towards his own weapon refining table. However, these things are only used during the key refining stage. Once they break through the foundation establishment stage, the cultivators can ignite their own true fire with their mana. That stuff is the real good stuff. How are you preparing, brother? Are you sure? Li Quanqing happened to come from the other side. He was never afraid of the strength of his opponent, but was very much looking forward to it. I'm ready to defeat you, brother. Li Quanqing smiled, full of confidence. Then I'll go all out. Li Quanqing's eyes were calm, and the long robe of the weapon refiner on his body was rustling in the wind, and he already had a bit of the demeanor of master. The two brothers staggered past each other, and their weapon refining tables were deliberately placed into opposite directions. To avoid the refining process being affected by the other party and performing abnormally. This kid's weapon refining level can actually be comparable to Li Quanqing. How old is he? Li Yumio narrowed his eyes in the elder seat, a little unbelievable. The victory over the champion seed Li Quanqing that day had already made Li Quanqing famous, and many elders remembered this extraordinary young man. Not only that, he has also made great achievements in swordsmanship, and has cultivated a kind of sword energy. Even if he is placed in the Shuhua sword sect, he is enough to enter the sword hall as an exception. Li Quanqing stood next to him, and explained to his father, without mentioning the blackmail he had been subjected to. The refining hall is really full of talents. They even snatched the work of our Chanking hall. Li Yumio narrowed his eyes and looked gloomy. Father, do you want to suppress one or two in secret? He used his magic power to isolate his body and block the surrounding prying to ensure that the sound would not be transmitted. Do you want to cause the family to split? Put away those thoughts. That should not be had. The elder snorted. I know what you are thinking. Don't worry, even if the family really gets a foundation building pill, he can't snatch it from you. a cultivator who is on the verge of a 60-year limit, and he is also a fire spirit root. Even if the Supreme Elder favors him, the elders will not agree, not to mention that there is also my father in charge. Hearing this, Li Yumio's expression finally relaxed, as if he had seen the foundation building pill waving to him. On the competition stage, the referee slowly came over. He was the only one standing alone, and it was the third elder. With him around, no weapon refiner dared to act presumptuously, showing his great authority. Let's get started. There's no time limit, no material limit, and you can apply to the family for anything you need. Li Quanqing sat on the armchair in the center, propping up his chin, and felt that it was a waste of time. TSK Li Quanqing released the fire spirit bird, which had bright red feathers, and looked similar to ordinary sparrows, but was a circle larger in size, with a golden beak and a lively look in his eyes. While he was comforting the spirit bird, he quickly reported the materials he needed to the servant in front of him. This was considered a preferential treatment for weapon refiners in this competition, and they could use many high quality materials for free. Even if the refining failed in the end, it could be regarded as a practice, and there was no loss. Li Quanqing had already chosen the target, and was ready to refine the top grade magic weapon, the green scale shield. This was also the most common choice among the weapon refiners present. After all, it was free and not painful. While the servants were carrying the materials, everyone showed their magical powers and lit the furnace. There were carefully selected high-grade spiritual woods, carefully cultivated fire beasts, and 2 weapon refiners with good luck and abundant financial resources who actually integrated some kind of spiritual fire into their dungeon. For a time, various colors of flame soared into the sky, causing waves of exclamations from the melon-eating tribe, and they were dazzled. The beast fire spit out by the fire spirit bird was red with a ray of golden color, which was quite standard, and won the victory in being moderate and peaceful. Even if it was used to refine water attributed magic tools, it was handy. Li Quanqing used the fire control technique to manipulate the spiritual power of the beast fire, and finally got the desired temperature. At this time, various ore materials were moved over, and the weapon refining officially began. Ding. Ding. Li Quanqing began his own performance. The weapon embryo he forged was indeed in the shape of a shield, but it was only 1/6 the size of an ordinary green scale shield. The diamond-shaped shield was only a circle larger than the palm of your hand, covered with green fish scales, arranged densely in a special way, and the edges were sharp and serrated. Is King making a shield or a hidden weapon? It's strange. The third elder raised his eyes slightly, finally showing a hint of interest. Li Quanqing did not stop after making the embryo, but continued to make the second and third shields. It turned out to be a combination of magic weapons. Very creative, not bad. With Li Quanqing's level of weapon refining, he could tell the truth at a glance. This is indeed the case. Inspired by the green water shuttle, Li Quanqing figured out a new idea. Although he cannot refine a top-grade magic weapon at present, he can use a large number of mid-grade magic weapons to integrate them into one to enhance the power. It sounds simple, but if he didn't have the ready-made example of the green water shuttle to study every day, he would not be very sure. The only disadvantage is that it takes too long. When other weapon refiners' works were successfully refined, Li Quanqing was still grunting and forging the 4th mid-grade Kinglin shield. This guy always has his own unique ideas. He is indeed better than me. Li Quanqing also held a green scale shield, which was as green as jade, and rippling with water. Although it performed exceptionally well, it was still a little short of a top-grade magic weapon. In the end, Li Quanqing refined 6 mid-grade green scale shields, which were as green as jade, and covered with ice blue patterns, like 6 tortoise shells, cleverly combined together. Click. The hidden buckle fell, and the magic power channel was successfully connected. The 6 shields merged into one, and the aura soared, which was ingenious. Well, in terms of quality alone, it is a top-grade magic weapon. The third elder grabbed the spiritual shield in his hand, and turned it over and over. Because it was a combined magic weapon, it was much larger than the ordinary green scale shield. It looked like a combination of a tortoise shell and a fish scale. Li Quanqing smiled slightly, and pressed his palm on the shield to infuse magic power. With a whoosh, the entire shield disintegrated instantly, and it actually had an attack mode. The 6 shield blades were thin and sharp, flying in the air almost silently, and were definitely the perfect magical weapon for ambushing people. It was in line with Li Quanqing's usual aesthetic taste. The third elder's eyes lit up when he saw it, and he exclaimed, "This is a new magical weapon you developed. Give it a name." Li Quanqing thought for a moment, and immediately had an idea. "Let's call it the Jade Scale Shield." Chapter 54 Final. The appearance of the green scale shield won the undisputed first place in the weapon refining competition. It can be said that Li Quanqing developed a new track for the family's green scale shield, greatly reducing the difficulty of refining. This is the real way of refining weapons. It is not to follow the rules and never change, but to change with the times and innovate. All weapon refiners lost with conviction, and they were indeed inferior to others. The third elder took out the jade bottle containing Tang Huadan, and said with a smile, "Take it well, don't drop it on the ground and break it. It's okay, it can be eaten even if it breaks, I don't mind it." Li Quanqing smiled and said, his palms were shaking slightly when he took the jade bottle. He was not excited, but he was really too tired. There were 6 magic weapons, which were extremely difficult, and took too much effort. The melon-eating people around him didn't understand what the combination of magic weapons were, but they just thought it was very awesome, so they applauded crazily. In the spotlight, Li Quanqing took over the honor that belonged to him. Tang Hua Pill. Li Quanqing was sitting in his own fish pond. He had heard of this famous elixir that could break through the ranks, but this was the first time he had touched it. He broke the magic spell that covered the mouth of the bottle, and suddenly a mist of elixir came out of the jade bottle, almost visible to the naked eye. He sniffed it, and at first there was a strange bitter smell, which made people unconsciously think of bitter lotus seeds, and his spirits were lifted. After the bitterness, there was the fragrance of hundreds of herbs, fresh and pleasant, like a walk after rain, and finally there was only a faint wisp of tongue fragrance lingering at the tip of the nose, which lasted for a long time. It was just a elixir, but it caused the magic power in his danshan to stir, and the speed of moving the small and large zaoshan was a little faster. "It's really extraordinary," Li Quanqing exclaimed, tilted the jade bottle, and poured out a blue and white elixir. Under the sunlight, the elixir color was flawless and pure, full and round, and clear like glass. Mueoking swam his tail, and also smelled the fragrance of the elixir. He raised his big head and cried, his fish eyes were big and cute. "I want to turn into a dragon. King Gao carp, another delicious food. Mine, mine, all mine. No one is allowed to grab it." Cultivation. Key refining level 2, 88%. Li Quanqing rubbed the huge fish head and put away the Tang Hua pill. "You can't eat this." A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Aoking's cultivation speed is really not slow. It has only been a short time, and he is about to break through the 3rd level of key refining. Compared with the human race, the monster beasts are indeed blessed by nature. Before encountering the shackles of blood, they can break through smoothly. The monster beasts in the key refining stage are like wild grass growing wildly in the fields. They are cut one after another, as if there is no end. Moo. Moo. Aoking was very unhappy when he didn't get the delicious food. He shook his fins and beat up the younger brothers who came forward. Now there are a total of 103 green jade carps in the fish pond. With the daily cultivation of the green water python and the copper armored crab, it seems very crowded. The spiritual energy in the fish pond is already on the verge of limit. This also caused the 3rd batch of green jade carps to be extremely inward looking. They would even fight each other when feeding, competing for spiritual bait. King of dry eating, green jade carp, dry eating, dry eating, dry eating. I will work hard to cultivate and grab all the bait. I will be so strong that no fish dares to snatch it from me. Maturity. 98%. Li Quanqing touched several of the largest green jade carps and was quite happy. These should be his favorite fish cubs. He took out a few handfuls of bait and fed them as encouragement and reward, and continued to work hard. The competition of the 100 arts of cultivation was held for half a month, and Li Quanqing also rested for half a month. Finally, the day of the top 10 competition came, and everyone was paying attention. Li Quanqing's mentality was very peaceful. There were many people behind this family competition, and the first place had been reserved long ago. His first opponent was a male cultivator at the 5th level of key refining. He was born in the direct lineage and had very good configurations of magic and magic tools. Unfortunately, he was still crushed to pieces when he faced him. Gengjin Sword energy burst out, and a sword came from the west, like a falling meteor, directly knocking the opponent off the competition stage, spitting blood and falling to the ground 5-3. Someone happened to be available for a buy, and it was decided by drawing lots under the supervision of the elders. Li Quanqing once again burst out his usual good luck and successfully drew a buy. He didn't even stay to watch the final result of the battle. He patted his butt and left, returning to the fish pond to continue fishing, playing with snakes and crabs. The top 3 of the family competition were still told to him by his senior brother Li Quanlin behind him using the sound transmission talisman. Li Quanqing, Li Quanqing, and the last one was actually Li Quanqing. This guy's too lucky, he has never encountered a very strong opponent. After Li Quanmo left, he had the highest attainments in body refining. Plus he had been hunting monsters for many years and had rich experience. With the cultivation of the 5th level of key refining, he successfully climbed to the top 3rd place. However, Li Quanqing was very self-aware. He gave up the title on the eve of the finals and gave up the qualification to compete for the championship. Seeing his smug look, I wonder if he was also collecting money behind the scenes. With everyone's anticipation, the finals finally arrived. Both monks come on stage. Amid the thunderous cheers of the tribesmen, Li Quanqing looked calm, walked onto the stage, and met his opponent. Key refining level 6, Li Quanqing. The girl was wearing a moon-white dress today, carrying a long sword on her back, with her sleeves buttoned tightly, and a high long ponytail tied up, looking neat and tidy. The ethereal fairy spirit on her body faded a lot, like a chivalrous woman in the secular world, with a sharp edge and a cold and sharp sword. I didn't expect that my final opponent would be you. Li Quanqing spoke softly, with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Many elders had the same feeling. They thought that this competition would be a fight between Li Quanmo and Li Quanqing. No one expected that a dark horse like Li Quanqing would come out halfway. My sister is a fairy with beautiful skin and extraordinary talent. I'm sure I cannot compete with her. Li Quanqing smiled brilliantly, but his eyes were looking at Li Quanqing below. He nodded imperceptibly, indicating that he would abide by the agreement and reassure the other party. The competition begins. The referee of the 9th level of key refining gave an order, and his magic power roared like a golden winged rock, and he jumped off the ring swiftly. Is it time for my brother to use those amulets for protection? Li Quanqing tilted his head, and a strand of black hair fell from his shoulders and swayed by his ears. As you wish. Li Quanqing started by slapping a bronze armor amulet on his body to show respect. Then, it was covered with 4 layers of golden light shields, and the mighty and domineering bronze armor stood there, full of oppression. Li Quanqing's face was as solemn as water, and she was ready to take out the powerful attack amulet prepared by her father for her. A barely perceptible voice suddenly transmitted into her ears. Sister, do you want a fake fight service? All kinds of losing postures are fine. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Li Quanqing. Her eyes widened slightly, and she looked around guiltily, and found that even the referee didn't pay attention. So she hesitated and said, how much do you want? Li Quanqing was delighted and continued to transmit. 2,000 spirit stones, a conscience price. It's really not expensive at all. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, The Beauty of Adulthood. 2,000 spiritual stones. This astonishing price really shocked Li Quanqing. For her, this is not a small amount. No point in talking, look at my sword talisman. Li Quanqing shouted with a cold face. With so many spiritual stones, it would be better to sell her, or simply admit defeat. Besides, it is not certain who will win or lose. It seems that the deal has fallen through. Why doesn't this girl know how to bargain? Li Quanqing was helpless, and held the talisman in his hand, ready to fight. The girl waved her hand and cast a powerful and blazing spiritual talisman, which disintegrated in midair and burst out with a majestic sword energy. First class golden sword talisman. The sword light crossed the sky, unstoppable, and destroyed 3 layers of golden light in succession before breaking away. What a powerful spiritual talisman. Li Quanqing felt the threat, and with a clang, the kingly sword instantly slashed out, the sword light swaying and shining, and the sharp edge broke through people. Clang! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing responded calmly, pulled out the white jade magic sword on her back, and slashed in the air. Unexpectedly, the blade in her hand was colorless and transparent, and flew out from the hilt with a click, killing invisibly. Carrying a long sword all day, it turns out to be used to trick people. Li Quanqing was a little speechless. He didn't expect that the girl looked pure white, but the inside was actually black when cut open. Fortunately, he had been nourishing himself with Tei and soul nourishing water every day during this period, and his soul power had greatly increased. He easily captured the fluctuations of the invisible sword blade. Clang! The kingly sword came and went, bursting out sword beams, and the Gengjin sword energy in the sky intertwined like a net, forcing out 2 invisible sword blades. This shadowless sword was really too vicious. The blade was thin and transparent, not to mention being extremely sharp. It could even be split in half from the middle. It was really hard to defend against. No, there's another one. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows and suddenly sensed a very obscure fluctuation coming from behind him, going straight to his back. Water element cover. He waved his hand, and the sea water splashed all over the sky, and the water curtain spread out. 9 layers of blue water element covers were condensed in succession, and the magic was perfected. Pop, pop, pop. A sharp invisible long needle came out of the air, which was difficult to identify with the naked eye, and directly pierced through several layers of water element covers. Li Quanqing manipulated the layers of undercurrents to continuously impact, and the water cover surged like a tide, finally solidifying the needle-shaped magic weapon. This shadowless sword of the clan sister is really exquisite. I wonder where you bought it? Li Quanqing was a little moved. The sword blade was split and hollow, and there was actually a poison needle hidden in it. Such a sinister and cunning magic weapon really suits his taste. It's a high-end magic weapon that is customized for personal use. It's not sold in the market. Li Quanqing pointed with her bare hands. Her fingers were white and slender. Her powerful magic power gushed out, pulling the sea water into a water tornado. Water dragon technique. I can do this trick too. Li Quanqing also pointed down with one finger, drawing on his own ancient magic power, splitting his attention to perform 2 tasks at the same time, performing the water element shield and water dragon technique. The fangs and claws of the water dragon took shape in front of him, lifelike, with scales and armor showing, and its size was much stronger than the one opposite. The girl frowned as she watched, and a jade pendant on her waist glowed, and invisible waves bloomed, covering the surface of the water dragon, which could bless the power of water magic. The 2 water dragons roared out, splashing water, and the waves surged, almost submerging the arena into a vast ocean. At the critical moment, the water dragon condensed by Li Quanqing shook its head and tail, and suddenly spit out a blue bead. The dragon spit out beads, dropping down strands of light, ripples blooming, and directly smashed the other water dragon into pieces. Water repellent beads. The water dragon roared, with almost no loss, and continued to rush towards the enemy, opening its mouth to spit out waves of water like waterfalls. Li Quanqing had no choice but to take out an ancient lamp from her storage bag. The light was as small as a bean, burning quietly. She blew gently, and the fire suddenly became bright, and a lion with purple flames all over its body rushed out, roaring and rushing towards the water dragon in the sky. Ayo. The fire lion's mane was scattered, and its body was as huge as a hill. The flames were blazing, and its terrifying power was comparable to that of a cultivator at the 7th or 8th level of key refining. With just one claw falling down, the whole water dragon was directly shattered, and the flames burned the sea water to boiling, leaving only large pieces of white water vapor. The purple fire lion swallowed the water repellent beads, roared to the sky, and ran directly on the ring, as if it were a flesh and blood monster. What a beast. Li Quanqing manipulated the 9-layer water element shield, and the sparkling water waves poured down on his head, finally extinguishing the beast fire. He stretched out his hand and took back the water repellent bead. In a short moment, the light of the bead was a little dim. The two of them went back and forth several times in a short period of time, and various spells, talismans, flying swords and treasures appeared in an endless stream, dazzling people. What is this guy doing? Didn't he agree to a fake match? Does he want to go back on his word? Li Quanqing's face turned black. He suddenly thought that there was no witness to the transaction between the two, and there was not even a written agreement. In other words, Li Quanqing could have embezzled his spirit stones and even used the IOU to blackmail him for spirit stones. Damn. The brain circuits of sword cultivators have always been straightforward, and they didn't consider these twists and turns at all. Li Quanqing did abide by the agreement, but he always felt that he was a bit at a disadvantage if he didn't take the first place, and he wanted to earn more. Vajra talisman. He took out a treasured talisman and activated it. A brilliant golden light burst out, and he turned into a Dharma Protector Vajra of the 7th level of key refining, majestic and awe-inspiring. Go, defeat her. After Li Quanqing gave the order, the Dharma Protector Vajra suddenly turned into a residual shadow and rushed out, covered with burly armor, like the most loyal puppet. Facing two opponents at the same time, Li Quanqing was suddenly a little flustered. She kept urging the ancient lamp in her hand to summon the flame lion beast, but she was still a little exhausted. Sister, how are you thinking now? I can give you a friendly discount. Li Quanqing's humble voice transmission sounded again. Li Quanqing gritted her teeth, took out a talisman to temporarily trap the Vajra, and struggled to support. I haven't lost yet. Then do you want to win? Li Quanqing once again performed the water dragon technique, and with the cover of the magic power, he took out his most powerful magic weapon at present, the water dragon pendant. An extremely powerful force slowly poured into the water dragon in front of him, and the powerful fluctuations were enough to make the cultivator of the 9th level of key refining feel threatened. However, Li Quanqing concealed it very well. No one noticed anything unusual, except Li Quanqing and the top elders. Li Quanqing was desperate. She looked at her father and mother in the distance, who were worried, and at the relatives, who were eager to return to the lineage. She chose to compromise. In the end, Li Quanqing gave a reasonable price of 1,200 spiritual stones. Together with Li Maozheng's 1,800, it just made up an integer to complete the beauty of the couple. I'm such a good person. Li Quanqing was almost moved to tears. The moment the deal was reached, the boy began his performance. First, the Dharma Protector King Kong exploded with a bang, turning into a sky full of spiritual energy, as if all the magic power was exhausted. Then the huge water dragon in front of him suddenly lost control, accompanied by violent fluctuations, broke into pieces, and turned into a large area of sea water again. Spell backlash? Li Quanqing shouted in disbelief, and was hit on the chest by heavy waves. He flew backwards and spit out a ball of blood. The situation suddenly reversed. Chapter 56, Jade Water Sword Technique. The final winner of the clan competition. Li Quanqing. The girl stood on the ring, listening to the thunderous cheers from all directions, her face full of confusion. All the clan members were cheering for her, shouting her name. Li Quanqing only felt humiliated. She was the champion, but why was she not happy at all? Below the ring, Li Quanqing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, smiled brightly and brilliantly, hiding his merits and fame. He looked at the crowd, his eyes suddenly lit up, and went straight to Li Quanqing. Li Quanqing also saw his actions. His face was quite unnatural, and he took the initiative to go to a place with fewer people. Here, the 800 spirit stones IOU. This is the good thing about sword cultivators. They keep their promises, and will do their best to do what they promised. So Li Quanqing likes to make friends with sword cultivators the most. He counted the spirit stones with a smile, and after confirming that they were correct, he handed the IOU to the other party. Li Quanqing was annoyed when he saw the note. He snorted coldly, and the sword energy at his fingertips was inhaled and exhaled, strangling the opponent immediately, turning it into flying paper scraps. What did you two do on the stage just now? Li Quanqing was not stupid, and he had a clear sword heart, so he noticed some signs. It was just a simple transaction. Li Quanqing put away the spirit stone and lived an open and honest life. You cheated us? Li Quanqing's eyes suddenly became unfriendly, and he clenched his magic sword tightly, with a sharp and compelling aura. Same here, same here. Didn't you also violate the clan rules and find us, the participants of the competition, to collude and lure us with spirit stones? Li Quanqing deliberately emphasized the word we, preparing to trick him. Li Quanqing was fooled, and there was a little hesitation on his face. His father was competing with the third elder for the quota for the next foundation building. If this matter was exposed, it would be terrible. Don't do it again. Li Quanqing snorted, turned around and walked away, looking angry, ready to kill a few monsters to relieve his anger. Li Quanqing didn't care about that. The first place originally belonged to him. It was a fair trade. With the spirit stones, he could rent a spirit island, buy new monsters, and practice the glass jade bone body. In addition, the family competition was successfully concluded, and the blue sea tide rising art was set in stone. He got another 3,000 low-grade spirit stones for free. This little life is so wonderful. Returning to the fish pond, the last few green water pythons finally entered the mature stage. Harvest a green water python in the early stage of key refining, and reward a water dragon technique experience group. Right square bracket asterisk 2. Harvest a green water python in the early stage of key refining, and reward the low grade magic green water sword technique. The water dragon technique is one step closer to perfection. It can condense 2 water dragons at the same time, doubling the happiness. A brand new sword technique came into his mind. It was the water sword technique, which could condense the green water sword energy and turn it into a sword formation to kill the enemy. It's actually a magic technique. Li Quanqing widened his eyes in surprise. Above the magic, there is the wonderful method. Generally speaking, only the great monks who have established their foundation can bring out the true power of the wonderful method. It is said that there is a supernatural power above the wonderful method, which is exclusive to the Gengjin Zenran. It is engraved on the Gengjin, and expounds the great way of heaven and earth. Li Quanqing began to comprehend the green water sword art, which was vast and profound. For a time, he felt that it was infinitely mysterious. If he had not practiced the Gengjin Sword Art to a superb level, it would be difficult to comprehend it at all. Green water sword key. Li Quanqing took out the kingly sword, and crossed the sea water. Wherever the sword passed, it was like drawing twisted waves, mysterious and mysterious. Whoosh! A wave-like sword energy rippled out, like a drop of water merging into the sea, invisible and invisible, quietly wiping out several large reefs, and finally disappearing. Only a few waves wrapped in stone chips were left, proving the extraordinariness of the green water sword energy. Li Quanqing touched his mouth, and felt endless aftertaste for a while. After he woke up, he realized that he had consumed 1/10 of his mana. It was indeed a wonderful method, so terrifying. This sword method is very suitable for playing tricks on people. To outsiders, the sword energy of the green water is almost the same as ordinary water marks, and it can be completely confused with other spells. The young man touched his chin, and in the blink of an eye, he thought of many insidious and vicious ways to perform it. Although he never left the house, and stayed in the fish pond for a whole year. But it did not affect his mind at all, simulating the battle process with different robbery cultivators every day, entertaining himself, and having a lot of fun. Li Quanqing was about to think about it again, when a guest suddenly visited the fish pond. The girl came in a spirit boat, and her moon-white lotus skirt set off her exquisite jade body. This is your spirit stone. Li Quanqing kept her promise, and threw a bag over, which was full of treasure. I thought you would default on your debt. Li Quanqing smiled, took the storage bag, and began to count. I lost anyway, so it's fair to pay for a title. Li Quanqing gathered her hair and spoke indifferently, as cold as ever. Perhaps for a lonely person like Li Quanqing, the title of first place in the competition is of no use. But Li Quanqing's branch is the largest branch of Qingfei Island, with nearly 100 cultivators. They think this deal is worth it. Once the former direct lineage status is restored, the gains are immeasurable. It's better to have less trouble than more. These spirit stones were reimbursed by the girl's father, and she couldn't afford it. Okay, the number is correct. Li Quanqing smiled, and held the storage bag tightly. He saw a spirit island waving at him. Goodbye. Li Quanqing nodded slightly and left gracefully. She still had a lot of things to do. If you break into the top 10 of the family competition, you can make a reasonable request to the family. Li Quanqing's goal is naturally the blue sea tide rising technique. After reporting to the family, he got the exact time and could go to the Sutra Pavilion to comprehend the technique. On this day, just after dawn, Li Quanqing was ready and came to the Sutra Pavilion early. The air on the island was damp and cold, and the fog rolled and condensed into a little white frost, covering the moss on the surface of the stone steps, and it creaked when stepped on. The Sutra Pavilion was quiet and empty, and only he could go in today, to avoid the loss of family inheritance. You came early, come in. The fourth elder Li Zongsuo put his sleeves in his hands, and his eyebrows were long and white, as if they were as old as the stone turtle statue beside him. Li Quanqing followed him into the hollowed out mountain belly Sutra Pavilion, and his eyes couldn't help but look at the shining jade slip at the top. The blue jade slip sank in the sunset, accompanied by the sound of the sea, majestic and mighty. Why are you still standing there? You don't really think that the fake one is the real Bhao Shenggong? The old man raised his eyebrows and looked at the simple and innocent young man with some amusement. Ah, this jade slip is fake. Li Quanqing was stunned for a moment, then he felt it was reasonable. It can't be said to be fake. There is indeed a foundation building method hidden in it, but it is a magic sacrifice scripture. If you practice it, you will kill yourself. And once someone accepts the inheritance, the second level spiritual talisman hidden in the jade slip will be triggered and explode on the spot. Li Zongsuo patted the dark and cold mountain wall next to him. Array spirit, open the protection array. Someone is here to accept the inheritance. But! Exclamation mark. The mountain trembled slightly, and countless array patterns lit up one after another, and then disappeared, leaving behind a terrifying momentum that made people's heart palpitate. With a click, a narrow secret door opened in an inconspicuous corner of the Sutra Pavilion, which could only accommodate one person. Let's go. The old man waved his hand, led the way in front, and stepped into the secret door. Chapter 57 Key Refining Level 7. Li Quanqing followed the old man into the secret door. A stone staircase extended downwards. It was steep and narrow, and no one knew where it led. Although there were no oil lamps or night pearls, the monks could see in the dark by filling their eyes with magic power. The further down they went, the thicker the water essence in the air became. The spiritual mist was floating, making people feel refreshed. I didn't know how far I went down, but finally a faint blue light bloomed in front of me. A huge pool appeared in front of me, filled with a blue liquid like the sea, with a faint luster and smooth as a mirror. In the center of the pool, a water blue lotus bigger than a millstone bloomed, like a dream. Jump in, the skills are in the inheritance pool. The fourth elder stood beside him, looking calm. Li Quanqing hesitated. Elder, do you want to take off your clothes? No need, the people before you didn't take off their clothes anyway. Li Quanqing. He walked into the pool with curiosity. The liquid was blue and viscous, with a jelly texture. These blue spiritual liquids seemed to have their own lives, climbing up along the calves, and drilling into Li Quanqing's flesh and blood meridians through the pores. If you look closely, you can see that in the deepest part of the liquid, there are countless symbols and characters condensing, explaining an ancient scripture. The blue sea tide rising technique. Li Quanqing simply sat cross-legged in the pool, allowing this clan stabilizing technique to automatically drill into his mind. The scripture was so vast and unpredictable that it made his temples swell. In addition to the most basic text inheritance, the areas covered by the blue liquid were also subtly changing his physique. Some hidden acupoints were opened up, and small collaterals were opened up, which were not recorded in the scriptures. Even if other people got the blue sea tide rising technique, they would find it difficult to practice because of the lack of spiritual liquid baptism, and they might not even make any progress. This is the most important part of inheritance. After a few hours, Li Quanqing's bones and meridians were all stained with a layer of bright blue light, which made his skin look like jade. When his body has completely absorbed all the energy, he can formally change his training method. This kid, his physique is very compatible with the jade sea tide technique. The fourth elder looked at the large pool that had turned into clear water and couldn't help but marvel at it. It was rare for him to see someone absorb the energy of the jade sea liquid so thoroughly. Li Quanqing opened his eyes, and there was a water blue glow surging in the depths of his pupils, which was quite strange. He moved his body for a while, and felt his mind was clear, as if he had taken off the shackles, and his affinity for water spirit energy increased a lot. What on earth is this liquid? Can it improve my water spirit root? He suppressed his excitement, looked at the blue crystal lotus in the center of the pond, and asked curiously, "Elder, what is this thing?" "A low-grade defense magic, water lotus barrier. It's an advanced version of the water element cover. Lotus blooms every step." The old man smiled and said, "Want to learn it? Spend all your family contribution points and you can just change it." Li Quanqing had no use for saving the contribution points, so he waved his hand and said generously, "Change it. Then sit on it, and accept the inheritance." The fourth elder raised his chin, took out the formation plate, and opened the inheritance formation. The whole crystal lotus was glowing and making a sound like waves. Another scripture was transmitted into his mind. This feeling of knowledge being directly instilled without learning. It was really great. There were too many things to inherit this time. Li Quanqing returned to the fish pond with a groggy mind, and slept for several days and nights. The sun was shining, and the weather was clear. A group of jade carps circled around the reef, constantly hitting the protective formation with their foreheads, their stomachs rumbling with hunger. Li Quanqing rubbed his head and finally completely digested the vast amount of knowledge. A jade carp has actually entered the mature stage. After feeding, Li Quanqing rubbed the carp's head and picked off 6 white shining balls of light. Harvest a jade carp in the early stage of key refining and reward a large spiritual energy ball. Right square bracket asterisk 4. Harvest a jade carp in the early stage of key refining and reward a medium grade jade carp sword. Right square bracket asterisk to the vast spiritual energy rushed through his body, and Li Quanqing took this opportunity to choose to change his skills. Blue sea tide rising skill. The young man got into position, with his 5 hearts facing the sky, and circulated the new meridians around the body, completely refining all the mana cultivated by the golden water art. This is not a simple process, it requires the removal of the original mana aura, which is no less than washing the marrow, and changing the bones. Li Quanqing spent a full month and finally succeeded in changing his skills. The blue mana traveled through the meridians, and finally turned into an ocean at the Danshan like 100 rivers converging into the sea. Although it was pure water attributed mana, the cultivator had all 5 spiritual roots, and with the help of the power of the 5 element, he could also cast all the 5 element spells. It was nothing more than a difference in power. During this period, 18 more green jade carps matured one after another, and a total of 8 spiritual energy groups, 4 green carp swords, and 3 water element shields and water dragon technique experience groups were awarded. With the help of abundant spiritual energy, Li Quanqing's cultivation finally reached the peak of the 6th level of key refining, and he felt the thick bottleneck. His own people know his own business. His spiritual roots are not outstanding, his talent is limited, and he wants to break through the late stage of key refining by himself. I'm afraid he needs to polish this bottleneck for several years. Fortunately, he is an excellent cheater. After waiting for more than half a month, and gathering enough spiritual energy balls, Li Quanqing took out the Tanghua pill, and swallowed it into his stomach. The pill melted in his mouth, and a bitter liquid medicine fell straight into his danshan, and was carried along by the magic power, penetrating into the meridians, and wandering around his body. The blue and green danqi drilled out of his body along the 7 orifices, condensed but not dispersed, and vaguely turned into a phantom of a phoenix tree with complete leaf veins, wrapping his whole body. Li Quanqing could clearly feel that with the help of the pill, the invisible bottleneck was slowly thinning. Thousands of spiritual medicines were refined into pills, and they could actually create such an effect. It was really a mysterious creation, and it was wonderful beyond words. Li Quanqing was very decisive. When the bottleneck was worn out to the extreme, he instantly crushed the light ball and attracted a large amount of spiritual energy and magic power to launch an attack. The fragrance of the medicine mixed with the essence of heaven and earth, turning into a thick mist, almost covering his entire body, like a thick cocoon. Mueoking poked his head out of the water and hurriedly called his friends to fight for the medicine and spiritual energy that had escaped. "There's something delicious. Come quickly." Not only the jade carp, but also the green water python, the copper armored crab, the bright moon shell and other spiritual beasts rushed to grab it, filling the entire fish pond, instinctively chasing the benefits. Li Quanqing had already set up a formation to protect it, and he didn't care about the outside world. He was focused on manipulating his mana to break through the bottleneck. Pop, 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 pop. I don't know how long it took, but finally, he rushed over in one go. A new route for transporting the skills emerged in his mind, and almost instinctively, the mana roared and began to attack the meridians. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rolling and refining, and the mana was abundant and safe. Li Quanqing's momentum rose with the tide, and in an instant he exceeded the 6th level of key training by a large margin, and steadily stepped into a new realm. Late stage of key training. The position of Island Master is already in sight. Chapter 58 Choosing Spirit Island. Finally, I'm one step closer to building my foundation. Li Quanqing opened his eyes, his face full of joy. The 7th level of key refining is an absolute celebrity among casual cultivators, a true veteran, and everyone who sees him will shout senior. If he wants, he is even qualified to go out on his own and open up a small key refining family. Those ruined sects with only dozens of cultivators, the existence of the sect master level, often only have this level of cultivation. The young man's magic power stirred the sky, enjoying this powerful pleasure to the fullest, his robe fluttering, and he almost wanted to ride the wind back home. Li Quanqing tried to take a step forward, and he stood steadily on the undulating sea surface. Step, step. He walked more and more steadily, and faster. Just by using magic power to wrap his feet, he could easily walk on the waves, and not sink in the water. Just standing on the sea surface, he would absorb endless water essence and quickly restore the consumed magic power. This is the effect brought by high level exercises. The mana in my dungeon is nearly doubled compared to before, and the recovery speed is also nearly 50% to 60% faster. The foundation building technique is so terrifying. Although Li Quanqing has only obtained the complete key refining chapter, he is still amazed. The double superposition of changing the technique and breaking through the late stage has made his combat power soar. In fact, he is far from reaching the peak, and there is still a lot of room for improvement. Liu Liu Gong, Bisha Jianju, plus the newly acquired defensive magic water lotus barrier. Each of them requires a lot of energy to practice, and after practicing, it is equally powerful. Li Quanqing feels that the day when he is invincible in key refining is not far away. Next, I will prepare to rent the Spirit Island, buy ore and spirit jade for body refining, and I will also participate in the Zioyao Island conference to buy a batch of new spirit beast cubs. Too busy. There are really too many things. Li Quanqing sighed, feeling that the days of leisurely lying down are gone forever. Perhaps this is the trouble of happiness. He looked at the fish, crabs, pythons and shellfish that were floundering in the pond. The danki had already been divided up, and all of them had gained considerable benefits, and the demonic energy was overflowing. I want to turn into a dragon, Aoking, green jade carp. I only hate that my mouth is not big enough, and those stinky crabs actually snatched away a lot of delicious food. Damn it, I'll go to war with them when I go back. Cultivation. Key refining level 2, 99%. This guy was born as a king of rolls, with extraordinary blood, and he got a lot of benefits, and he was only one step away from a breakthrough. Seeing this, Li Quanqing directly shot out a stream of blue sea magic power, crystal clear, and drilled into Aoking's body, to cleanse its tendons and marrow. This kind of pretentious method exclusive to senior masters, he can now also rub it. Moo! Exclamation mark. Aoking roared loudly with pleasure, and the fish scales all over his body opened up, with an indescribable pleasure. Li Quanqing carefully combed the demonic energy and blood inside its body for it. He was surprised to find that when the demonic energy in this guy's body was running, he actually felt like a rough technique. He was indeed his favorite cub. After the baptism, Aoking finally made up for the last bit of his foundation. While trembling all over, he broke through the invisible bottleneck with a puff. The 3rd level of key refining. The speed of cultivation alone is enough to make many cultivators ashamed. Seeing this, the 8-headed green water pythons also came up to act coquettishly, wanting to experience this feeling, and their pupils were watery, as if they could speak. Snap, snap. The copper-armored crabs were also not to be outdone. This group of guys now had their crab legs open, each of which was a circle larger than a wash basin. The originally golden crab shell became much darker, like a bronze armor draped over the body, and the crab claws were waving, indestructible. Li Quanqing took the trouble to meet their requirements one by one, and practiced how to manipulate magic power more accurately. The progress of the cultivation of these spirit beasts was a little disappointing. There are too many demons in the fish pond. Just talking about the 100 green jade carps, it is an extremely large number. The spiritual energy absorbed and exhaled every day is huge. It's time to plan a spiritual island. 10,000 acres of water, thousands of fish, close at hand. Li Quanqing did it as he thought. The next day, he brought gifts and asked the third elder for help. You want to leave the family and rent a spiritual island to run it yourself? Li Quanqing looked at the green-robed boy in front of him, wondering secretly, and suddenly realized that his aura was a little erratic. No, you broke through again. The old man stared at him. This kid is less than 20 years old. How can he cultivate so fast? Li Quanqing broke through the 7th level of key refining when he was 21 years old. I had a sudden inspiration when I was practicing before. I felt that the time had come, and I was in a very good state, so I swallowed the Tanghe pill to refine it, and broke through by chance. Li Quanqing said modestly, otherwise, I'm afraid I will have to grind on the bottleneck of the 7th level of key refining for a long time. The grade of the Bhao Shenggong is very high, and it has the effect of hiding aura. It was because he had just broken through, and his magic power had not been completely restrained, that the third elder saw through his true strength. With your cultivation speed, maybe one day you can build your foundation without saying anything. Li Quanqing shook his head and praised, let's go. Follow me to the Evergreen Palace, to take a look at the idle and vacant spiritual islands waiting to be rented. After they arrived at the Evergreen Palace, there was naturally a special person to receive them carefully. Mark all the vacant spiritual islands for me. Don't take any spiritual islands that are not of the first class quality, and don't take any that are too far from the Bao King Fang. Don't bring out those islands that are deceptive and embarrassing. The third elder was familiar with the route and ordered the deacons under the great elder, as if the Evergreen Palace was his own. Li Quanqing, who was following behind, couldn't help but straighten his back. This is the advantage of having a backer. You only need to ask for what you want, and someone will take the initiative to offer it. Third elder, there are not many islands that meet your requirements. The person in charge wiped the sweat from his forehead, smiled, and nodded. Stop talking nonsense and mark them all for me. Someone immediately brought a map of the entire Qinghai Islands, covering thousands of miles of sea area, vast and boundless, with various islands arranged like stars. Islands with hidden spiritual veins are rare, and they also require first level top grade ones to support the daily practice of late stage key refining cultivators. Such islands have long been divided up by various family forces that are dependent on the Li family, or they are a source islands of the Li family. There are only 3 or 4 marked on the map. Li Quanqing checked them one by one, and with the careful introduction of the deacon next to him, he finally chose a spiritual island. Yulong Island. This island is only more than 80 miles away from Bao King Fang, and it is safe. What's more important is that the sea area to which the island belongs is very large. The crescent-shaped spiritual island is located on the map, with a narrow and long area, surrounded by a vast water area of nearly tens of thousands of acres, called Yulongbo. Li Quanqing was attracted by this inner island lake, which is naturally suitable for fish farming. Yulong Island? Although this island is also a first-class spiritual vein, most of the spiritual energy is concentrated in that lake, and the spiritual energy on the island is not very abundant. The deacon next to him did his duty and explained the various advantages and disadvantages. Li Quanqing didn't care. He relied on cheating to practice, and he didn't care much about external objects such as spiritual veins and spiritual stones. This is it. The young man was sure, and the title of the owner of Yulong Island sounded very impressive. It's my destiny. Chapter 59 Fish Dragon Island. Seeing that Li Quanqing insisted on choosing Yulong Island, the deacon of Changqing Hall did not say much and silently registered it in the book. The rental price of a first level high quality spiritual island is 200 spiritual stones per year. How many years do you choose to rent it? The third elder glared at him and said, the high quality weapon refiners of my weapon hall rent a spiritual island. How dare you in Changqing Hall not give a discount? The deacon smiled bitterly and finally gave a 30% discount. 140 spiritual stones per year. Li Quanqing first rented for 5 years, spending 700 spiritual stones. This is your land deed and the control array disk of the island protection array. When the time comes, the array master of Bao King Fang will arrive to control the array for you. If you need anything, you can tell him. The deacon handed over various things respectfully and completed the handover of this spiritual island. Li Quanqing touched the thick land deed and couldn't help feeling a little proud. He once envied Zihangai's freedom on Hangfeng Island, but now in the blink of an eye, he is also the real owner of the spiritual island. It's time to celebrate. After collecting the deed and the array plate, the young man happily returned to the fish pond and began to prepare for the relocation. Those spiritual beasts with potential would naturally be packed up and taken away so that they could be harvested at that time. It's not a big deal to leave the 2 fish ponds idle. I have to find someone to help me take care of them. At least I can earn some spiritual stones. Li Quanqing thought of the old man Li Quanqing. If he was asked to come out of retirement, he would definitely be a hands-off boss and wouldn't have to worry too much. So, before Li Quanqing had even sat down, he picked up 2 more green jade carps and went to visit the old man. Congratulations, Brother King, you have earned this huge foundation by yourself. That's a spiritual island, enough to raise many spiritual fish. Li Quanqing's old face was full of amazement. Although he was nearly 100 years old, he still looked strong and energetic. Li Quanqing smiled and said a few humble words before explaining his purpose. Helping King take care of the fish ponds is something that I would love to do, but I'm old and my eyesight is blurry. I'm really incapable of running around in several fish ponds. The old man blew out a puff of smoke, tapped the pipe in his hand, and finally pointed to the busy young man in the fish pond. What do you think of ZHU, the boy? How about letting him take care of the fish pond in Area C? Today, Li Quanqing has a tanned skin. When he stands at the boat to collect the net, his movements are skillful and natural. He is definitely an authentic fisherman. He even learned to manipulate flames to increase the temperature of the seawater, forcing the big black carps to roll on the water surface and automatically jump into the net, saving time and effort. This kid is really a talent. Li Quanqing thought about it and finally agreed to this plan. He returned to the fish pond and began to count the spiritual beasts he raised and began to choose who to take to Yulong Island. He would not take the big black carps as there were too many of them. He would buy a large number of fry and ask the family to send them over. The jade carp must be brought along. The third batch has gradually entered the mature stage. It is just in time to feed them the hehuan pill and start cultivating the 4th batch. The bright moon shell is too slow to advance, so give it up and leave it in the fish pond to purify the water quality. I will go back to Zihangaiu to buy a batch of shellfish. The copper crab and the green water python have a decent cultivation speed and have the potential to advance to the middle stage of key refining. Take them with you and they can breed their offspring. Li Quanqing searched the fish pond thoroughly and did not expect to find a new surprise. Harvest a key refining early stage stone spirit loach and be rewarded with a medium grade magical instrument stone spirit seal exclamation point right square bracket asterisk 3. Harvest a key refining early stage stone spirit loach and be rewarded with 10 low grade talismans. The falling stone talisman exclamation point right square bracket asterisk 7. Harvest a key refining early stage stone spirit loach and be rewarded with a gourd of beauty enhancing spiritual mud exclamation point right square bracket asterisk 15. Li Quanqing had casually thrown the young stone spirit loach into the fish pond, but who knew that they would all enter the mature stage without making a sound. 3 stone spirit seals and more than a dozen gourds of beauty spirit mud. A great harvest, a great harvest. Li Quanqing happily put away these treasures so that he could take them to the market to sell spirit stones. Recently, Li Quanqing has not come to him to refine spirit mud. Maybe he has become a formal alchemist. Hey, when did a big stone appear here? Li Quanqing was looking for the stone spirit loach with the water repellent beads in his mouth, and suddenly found a reef as big as a rockery rising high. The blue-black big stone was deeply sunken in the mud, and the surface was rugged and covered with various mosses and seaweeds. I don't know when it was buried here. Swish! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing's spiritual sense was keenly aware that this stone was actually spying on him. The next moment, a dark green big head emerged from the stone, looking at him lazily, and the two eyes still had the ignorance of just waking up. Turtle, it turned out to be you. Li Quanqing manipulated the water flow to clean the grass and algae mud on the longevity turtle, and finally revealed the clear lines on the turtle shell. It was huge, lying there motionless, like a calm hill, and its dark green scales glowed with a strange luster under the water waves. Motionless longevity turtle, it's so comfortable to stay at home every day. I just took a nap, and the master's breath has become so strong. Please feed it. Maturity 9%. Li Quanqing looked at the huge body of the spirit turtle, and then looked at the development degree of that digit, and couldn't help but sigh deeply. I almost forgot that he also raised such a strange monster. Forget it, you also come with me to Yulong Island, and live a good life. Li Quanqing shot out a blue sea magic power, got into the turtle shell, to comb the blood and meridians for the turtle. Who would have thought that the longevity turtle was too big, and the demonic energy was surging, which consumed a third of his Danshin magic power. The guy let out a low roar of joy, and his whole body shuddered violently, successfully reaching 10% maturity. Longevity turtle, let's go. Li Quanqing sat on the turtle shell, and touched the turtle's head. The guy paddled his limbs reluctantly, and went to the surface of the water. The longevity turtle swam very steadily, and its broad back seemed to be sitting on a small island. It felt warm and comfortable to the touch, much more impressive than his own doggy paddle. He actually liked this mount a little. Could it be that someone will give me the title of a turtle riding immortal in the future? Li Quanqing's thoughts were scattered in his head, and he laughed dumbly. Hiss snap. Moo. The appearance of the longevity turtle immediately scared all the spirit beasts. They looked at their little friends who could be bullied by anyone in the past, and silently grew into giants, and they were all a little confused. Especially those detritus crabs. All of them got into the reef caves, and even their crab claws drooped, bullying the weak, and fearing the strong. Is this the longevity turtle? It's grown so big, it's well fed. At some point, the third elder appeared outside the fish pond, and was not noticed, until he started talking. Meet the whole master. Li Quanqing bowed, wondering what the old man was doing here. I'm sending you a gift, to congratulate you on moving into a new house, and becoming the master of an island. Li Quanqing stroked his beard, looking like a kind elder, and handed over an ordinary cloth bag. Open it and take a look. It can be used to save your life at a critical moment. Since it's a gift from the whole master, it must be very precious. Li Quanqing flattered him. Ha ha ha, you are good at making me happy. The third elder was very pleased with what he said, and raised his chin proudly. It's not a precious thing, just a second level spiritual talisman. Li Quanqing's palm holding the cloth bag couldn't help shaking a few times. Chapter 60 Kaleidoscope. Li Quanqing held the bag in his hand, not knowing whether to take it or not. That was a second level spiritual talisman, which could rival the power of a foundation building cultivator. For a key refining cultivator, it was like a second life. Take it. This was drawn by the Grand Elder. I have another stack here. Li Quanqing waved his hand, not really caring. Grand Elder? Li Quanqing immediately understood. It was none other than the third elder's brother, the great foundation building cultivator Li Quanqing. The undisputed genius of the Li family decades ago, with a top grade thunder spirit root and unparalleled offensive power. I didn't expect that the Grand Elder was actually a second level talisman master, Li Quanqing exclaimed, pouring out a few talismans from the bag. A second level Gishu Shenlei talisman, a Xianlei Zigia talisman, and a Qianli Liden talisman. One each for attack, defense, and speed. Very comprehensive considerations. Yulong Island is located near Baoqingfang City. It is very safe. These talismans are just in case. Li Quanqing thought of the last insect disaster. Master, have you found out the mastermind behind the sudden outbreak of demon insects? There are some clues. I guess it's a half-demon spy who is causing trouble. My brother mentioned that it seems that a demon king advanced during that period. The families and forces in the nearby sea area have had a lot of trouble, which has attracted the attention of the major giant insects. Li Kunli's words were a bit vague. Demon king advanced. Li Quanqing was shocked when he heard it, and he didn't know if it succeeded. If he successfully survived the Thunder Tribulation, he would become a Yuanying demon, which would be comparable to those old monsters in the human cultivation world. Li Quanqing put away the talisman, which is a life-saving thing. Li Kunli did not leave. Follow me, you are the pride of our weapon hall after all. The family has specially prepared another life-saving thing for you. Another treasure? Li Quanqing was extremely surprised. It was like a pie in the sky. Now, in the eyes of the family's top leaders, he can probably be regarded as a foundation building seed. The two left the fish pond and went straight to the family's forbidden area in the center of Qingyu Island. Chanking Hall, Sutra Pavilion, Weapon Refining Hall, Yulangton. These four iconic buildings are located in the four directions of Qingyu Island: east, west, south, and north, suppressing the Earth's spiritual veins. The core area in the center of Qingyu Island is an unknown forbidden area, and few people have entered it. Under the leadership of the third elder, Li Quanqing passed through a series of formations and finally set foot here. There are green mountains everywhere, ancient trees towering into the sky, and what comes into view is an extremely ancient and wild world. What is located in the mountains and forests is not the mysterious buildings imagined, but only tombstones and tombs, engraved with the names, cultivation, and life stories of the deceased. The further you go, the fewer graves you see, but the cultivation levels on the tombstones are getting higher and higher, and the air is filled with an extremely oppressive atmosphere. In this environment, Li Quanqing couldn't help but look solemn and wait. When he got here, he finally saw some traces of living people. They were old men who were about to die. They traveled through mountains and rivers, silently repairing the mountaintops and taking care of the graves, as if they would pass away in the next second. Li Quanqing didn't dare to underestimate them. They were the most respected group of old men in the Qingyu Li family, and their cultivation levels were no lower than those in the late stage of key refining. They were also full of vigor and vitality, pointing out the mountains and rivers. Although they are now old and unbearable, if there is really an enemy who dares to attack, they will be the first to rush to the battlefield, burn their bodies, squeeze out the last drop of mana, and keep the young men of the Li family firmly behind them. Hualala, the deepest part of the forbidden area is finally no longer so silent and oppressive. A lake with hundreds of acres of inner islands has been dug out here, and the lake water is as blue as the sea. The third elder pointed to several small boats parked on the shore, and motioned him to board the boat. He stretched out his oars, and rowed slowly like a mortal boatman. As soon as he stepped into the lake, Li Quanqing was shocked, and felt a mountain-like pressure coming at him. It was difficult to mobilize the mana in his dinshin. The runes of the formation were everywhere, covering every inch of the void and the lake. The light was flowing, enough to imprison the void and block the world. A quasi third level clan protection formation. What surprised Li Quanqing even more was that the azure blue lake water was actually the same as the blue liquid breath he received when he was inheriting in the Sutra Pavilion. But the amount was too much, covering hundreds of acres of water. Presumably, these lake waters can only be called the blue sea spirit liquid after being refined and purified. The fishing boat rowed farther and farther. Along the way, many large rocks protruding from the water surface could be seen, with strange shapes, and occasionally colorful big fish could be seen. Gradually, Li Quanqing saw something strange. Previously in the Changqing Palace, the deacon had taken out the sea map of the entire Qingyu Islands for them to choose a spiritual island. Some of the large rocks protruding from the water are exactly the same shape as those islands. This Nidao Lake turned out to be a huge sea map of hundreds of acres. Li Quanqing couldn't help but be shocked by the generosity of the ancestors of the family. This sea map was definitely prepared for foundation building cultivators. Only a strong foundation building cultivator could fly in the air to see the overall situation and see the full picture of this 10,000 miles sea map. The center of the lake just came to the location of Gengjin Island. On the bamboo green stone protruding from the water, an old man was meditating with his back to them, and in front of him stood an ancient mirror about 10 feet high. The ancient mirror was majestic, and it was unknown how many long years it had passed. The color was as deep as the vast sea. In the turbulent waves, there were ancient patterns of thousands of fish competing to cross. Patriarch, I brought him here to ask for a Wanyu mirror. In front of this old man, the third elder actually restrained his arrogance. Li Quanqing from Kingpin Island, meeting the clan leader. The young man was also shocked. He did not expect that the old man with his back to them was the clan leader Li Quanqing. I already know about this matter, it's accurate. After the old man said this, he said no more, like a lifeless statue. Under the guidance of the third elder, Li Quanqing took out a drop of his own life essence and blood, and bounced it onto the surface of the ancient mirror. The mirror surface was rough and sandy, and it had long been unable to reflect anything clearly. After absorbing the essence and blood, it was like rippling water waves. Half an incense stick of time passed, and a big carp as blue as jade suddenly jumped out of the mirror. Its eyes were smart, and its breath and magic power were completely in line with the boy. The spirit fish swam around Li Quanqing for several circles, and finally, like offering a treasure, its two fins arched, presenting a mirror that could reflect people, with fish patterns engraved on the back. This is the Wanyu mirror. It can send messages over thousands of miles. If you encounter an opponent you can't defeat, you can quickly ask the clan leader for help. I understand. It turns out that it is a one-click call for the foundation building proxy service. Li Quanqing understood instantly and put away the Wanyu mirror properly. This is also a good treasure that can save his life. The blue spirit fish called a few times, jumped directly into the lake, and stayed at the position of Gengjin Island without moving. It seems that wherever the Wanyu mirror on Li Quanqing's body is, the big fish will stay on the corresponding position on the sea chart. I understand this too. It's accurate satellite positioning. After leaving the family's forbidden area, the old and the young breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, feeling relaxed all over. Whether it is the mountain cemetery or facing the foundation building monks, the pressure is not ordinary. At this time, the third elder also took out a treasure mirror from the storage bag. The owners of the Wanyu mirror can also contact each other. I will teach you how to play. Li Quanqing. Add a friend first. Chapter 61. The Master of an Island. After exchanging the magic power mark, Li Quanqing felt that he was very safe going to Yulong Island as the island owner. With the second level spiritual talisman, he could call for a proxy service at any time. Even if he faced a foundation building master, he would not be intimidated. Bullshit. He went there to raise fish and farm, and he was not stupid. Why would he offend the foundation building master for no reason? This is unlucky. Delete it and say it again. Returning to the fish pond, Li Quanqing packed his luggage and officially started moving. He took out the spirit beast bag and filled it, handed the two fish ponds to Li Quanqiu and Li Quanzu, and agreed on the spiritual stone reward. Officially set off. The waves were endless, and Li Quanqing rode on the longevity turtle, swaying towards the direction of Yulong Island. The blue sea and blue sky were endless soft white clouds floated over his head, and the sun sprinkled on his body, warm and cozy. Moo. Aoking swam back and forth in the seawater excitedly. It was the first time for him to leave the narrow fish pond and see the vastness of this world. The shallow water in the fish pond cannot raise a dragon. Only the boundless sea can create a real dragon. Bah. 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 Li Quanqing was afraid that Aoking would be lonely, so he released a few of its little friends. Unexpectedly, the green jade carp began to spit excitedly, playing and fighting in the sea, having a lot of fun. The water arrows reflected colorful rays of light in the sun. The spiritual carp in the seawater was tumbling, and the fins were elegant, like elves carved from green jade, which was beautiful in an instant. Li Quanqing was also very pleasing to the eye. This was the leisurely and comfortable life of cultivating immortals. After swimming for 2 days, they finally arrived at Yulong Island. There were no accidents on the road, and it was safe and smooth. The spiritual island is long and narrow, standing in the sea like a crescent moon, stretching for dozens of miles, with lush mountains and forests, verdant and full of vitality. The entire island was covered by a formation. Under the control of a cultivator, it was enough to block an enemy at the great perfection of key refining. Li Quanqing first ordered Aoking and the others to patrol the sea area around the island to check if there were any monsters building nests. Then he took out the formation plate and opened the formation and took the longevity turtle to a shallow beach. "There are people on the island?" Li Quanqing frowned, looked up and saw wisps of smoke rising into the sky, dispersing with the wind and sinking into the sky. When he got closer, he found that it was a village of medium size, with many mortals living there. Roar. The longevity turtle roared at them lazily. After all, it was a monster, and the sound was like thunder, causing a commotion. "Master Immortal. The new Immortal Master has arrived. Hurry to greet him." A group of mortals ran over in a mess, very respectful. All of them were strong mortal warriors and beautiful maids, no old people or children. Li Quanqing understood. "Did the previous island owner bring you here?" "Yes, sir. We are willing to serve you, master, and we will do anything for you." Everyone looked at him anxiously. The previous island owner was an elderly casual cultivator who failed to break through the 9th level of key refining and died on the spot, leaving them alone and helpless. Unfortunately, Li Quanqing would not leave these mortals behind. "Take me around the island," he ordered without giving a positive response. Yulong Island has a rugged terrain with continuous mountains. There are few valleys that can be used to grow spiritual rice and spiritual medicine, only a few hundred acres. Most of the island's spiritual veins are concentrated in Yulongbo. The shore is white and fine, with dozens of exquisite pavilions and caves built. The original owner also lived here all year round. Yulongbo has a wide surface of tens of thousands of acres, and it is endless. The waters with rich spiritual energy are even better than the second-class fish ponds. Li Quanqing opened the spirit beast bag and the fish basket, and released all the frustrated spirit beasts. Suddenly seeing such a wide sea, the blue water python and the copper-armored crab were all stunned. They swam and swam in the cold sea water, almost fainting with happiness. "You will go away on your own. I have my own arrangements for your destination." Looking at the mortals who were looking at him eagerly, Li Quanqing deliberately kept a straight face, looking very majestic. Some people heard the meaning of his words and looked gloomy. There were even beautiful maids who were unwilling to give up and tried to flirt with him. Li Quanqing ignored them and rode the longevity turtle to leave the archipelago directly to find Aoking and others. After finding all the green jade carps and making sure there were no hidden monsters around, Li Quanqing was not in a hurry to go back, but took out a talisman and crushed it. This was the signal he agreed with his family. A deacon from Baoking Fang would come and hand over to him. Soon, a spiritual boat came riding the wind and waves, with 4 cultivators standing on it. There were 3 family stewards, 1 at the 7th level of key refining, and 2 at the 6th level. The last one was an old man with a plain appearance. His cultivation was not high, but he was full of arrogance. The robe he wore was embroidered with the 8 diagrams. "I'm Li Yulong, and this must be the nephew Quanqing from the refining hall. He is really a hero in his youth." The leading steward was very polite. He bowed and introduced the old man behind him, Master Han, the top grade formation master worshipped by the family. The atmosphere among the group was harmonious. Even the arrogant Master Han was polite to the young man in green robes in front of him. Li Quanqing took the opportunity to mention the mortals on the island. Li Yulong readily agreed to help send them to the mortal island countries controlled by the Li family. The protective formation of Yulong Island is a first-class Shanking Rushu formation. With the help of abundant water essence, it is even more powerful. Master Han checked the wear and tear of the formation flags and formation bases on the island, and explained in detail how to manipulate the formation to defend against the enemy. Li Quanqing listened with great interest. Yes, this formation is very complete and well maintained. There is no need to worry. After searching the entire island, Master Han came to the final conclusion. Li Yulong also called a large ship at this time to transport all the mortals away. Li Quanqing sent everyone away and stuffed a bag of spiritual stones as a token of his gratitude. He stood on the empty shore, listening to the sound of the waves. The corners of his mouth became more and more curved, and finally he couldn't help laughing. Finally, the master of an island. The young man looked at this verdant spiritual island in the boundless sea and felt that the world was vast and there was a lot to do. He was almost impatient and played a few sound transmission nodes to call his friends. "I'm Li Quanqing, the new owner of Yulong Island. Come quickly." The first to arrive was Li Quanfu, who had been running the shop in the market for a year and had a more tactful temperament. "Boss, these are the big black carp fry I bought according to your instructions, a total of 100,000. There were 2 large boats behind him, and a group of fishermen shouted and began to pour the fry into Yulongbo. The formation guarded, so there was no fear that the fry would run away. Li Quanfu took out the spiritual wine and spiritual food he bought and began to arrange it silently, knowing that his boss didn't understand the ins and outs of these private gatherings of cultivators. "Quanqing, open the door. I brought good wine." Li Quanqing followed closely behind, his black robe fluttering, and beside him was Li Quanmo, the main vein, who looked serious. Li Quanqing welcomed the two, and after talking, he learned that they met when they were hunting monsters. As both body refining cultivators, they had similar lonely personalities, and finally became friends, going hunting monsters together every day. "Congratulations, senior brother, you have obtained the Spirit Island." Li Quanqing was the last to arrive, and she still spoke softly. There was also a girl in a red dress in the spirit boat carrying a gift, and it was Zihangyu. With the arrival of the 2 girls, the group was all present. Li Quanqing had been practicing all the way, and although he had been staying in the fish pond all year round, he was fortunate to have met these friends. The road to immortality is not lonely. "Here, little brother king, this is a gift from my sister." Zihangyu took out a spirit beast bag and handed it to him. Li Quanqing opened it and saw that it was the shells of more than 50 bright moon shells, and he was immediately overjoyed. Everyone sat separately, drank and ate, talked about everything, and laughed, and the guests were all happy. It really had a bit of the peaceful scene of the Immortal Cave. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Yun Yangzi. Brother King is now the island owner and a young talent of the Qingyu Li family. Are you willing to join my little circle? Zihangyu drank with her neck tilted back, revealing a white and delicate face, and spoke carelessly. Li Quanqing's heart was slightly moved when he heard this. I wonder what kind of circle it is. The core disciples of the major immortal cultivation families, the Li and Zi families, the Tonghua Wang family, and the Zioyao Island Yun family, all have young people who rented the spiritual island in Bao Qingfang. Everyone talks about the mysteries of the world and shares what they have. Zihangyu blinked her eyes. This group of guys is obviously the most famous second generation cultivators in the nearby sea area. Li Quanqing, who was standing next to her, listened to these words, but her eyes dimmed slightly. She has always wanted to join in, but unfortunately she has not been able to get either the cultivation level or the background. Are there no cultivators from the Sita family of Taoan Island? Li Quanqing was curious. This is the strongest foundation building force under the Shuhua sword sect. The Sita family claims to be the descendants of the golden elixir, and their bloodline is noble. They don't want to play with us at all. Li Quanqing sneered, and it seemed that he had some conflicts with the cultivators of this family. Li Quanqing understood immediately after hearing this. He thought for a moment and decided to join this small circle to see what happened. He still understood that people of the same status would be associated with the same kind of people. Now that he has a high status, naturally someone will take the initiative to send him an invitation. Zihangyu was immediately delighted. It just so happens that there will be a small trading meeting next month. Brother King must come. Sister will introduce you to other Taoist friends. Li Quanqing nodded in agreement. After the banquet, only Li Quanfu stayed. Li Quanqing took out the kingly sword, stone spirit seal, beauty spirit mud and a large stack of talismans that he had opened before, and gave them to him to sell. Faced with so many treasures, Li Quanfu was very tactful and did not ask more questions. It was enough to do his duty well. Oh, Quanfu, buy another batch of spiritual ore and precious jades. I need them for my body training. Li Quanqing was too lazy to go to the market again. Boss, spiritual iron ore is easy to deal with, but precious jades are rare. There are almost no large quantities of them sold in Gengjin. It's okay. Buy a batch of spiritual ore first, preferably spiritual copper, in large quantities, low grade ones. No need to buy those high grade ores. Li Quanqing didn't care. The first stage of Liu Gang is called copper bone body, which he has not yet cultivated. When he reaches the jade bone body, he will need a large amount of precious jade to help him practice. 1 month later, Li Quanqing held a piece of water elemental copper in his mouth. While practicing the copper bone body, he looked for new light ball rewards. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key training, and reward a spiritual energy ball. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key training, and reward a middle grade magic weapon green carp sword. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key training, and reward a water dragon technique experience group. Harvest a green jade carp in the early stage of key training, and reward a green water sword experience group. Li Quanqing exclaimed, looking at the green jade carp in his hand. He did not expect there would be an unexpected surprise. Swish. A stream of green water sword energy burst out, soft like a stream of water entwined around the fingertips, rippling with sparkling waves, but sharp enough to cut through anything. The young man touched the male green jade carp that had opened the sword formula experience group. Its scales were bright and its body was surprisingly large. This state was a little familiar. He stretched out his finger. The fingertips were shining with a bronze metallic luster, and with a click, he broke the scales on the carp's back. A little golden light jumped into his eyes, like patches of floating gold flashing, revealing an indescribable nobility. Gold pattern alien. I want to be a dog. Green jade carp. I want to follow the footsteps of Master Aoking forever. I want to be Master Aoking's dog. Cultivation. Key refining level 1. 1%. Li Quanqing found it funny. He looked like a gangster who had been led astray. He released the golden pattern jade carp, which was the last one in the third batch of jade carp to reach maturity. It's time to feed the heroin pill. Li Quanqing rubbed his palms impatiently. He had been trapping the 100 jade carps with a formation, waiting for this day. It's time for dinner. The canteen is open for dinner. He patted the spirit boat, making a dull sound that spread far in the water. It was a signal for dinner. Splash. The water splashed, and the turbid waves rolled. All the jade carp floated to the surface of the water, looking at him eagerly. Li Quanqing took out the heroin pill, crushed it, mixed it into the spiritual bait and fish food, and sprinkled it out with handfuls, his sleeves fluttering. The spiritual fish immediately scrambled for it. The water seemed to be boiling, and they scrambled to eat the bait. The heroin pill entered his stomach, the medicinal power rose, and streams of warm currents escaped, and his whole body was fluttering, as if he had reached the peak of his life. In broad daylight, the open-air meeting was opened in public, and they couldn't wait to start kissing. Jade carp generally only mate once in their lifetime. So when many male fish finished their masculinity, they immediately returned to their boring state, patting their tails and swimming away. In the sea water, densely packed fish eggs were suspended, drifting with the waves. There were thousands of them, silently accumulating strength waiting for the day when they would hatch into seedlings. Moo. Aoking swam over silently, witnessing the entire open-air meeting with his own eyes, and seemed to be somewhat touched. I want to turn into a dragon. Aoking. Jade carp. Damn it, why do you make me so eager to do it? How can I give up halfway on the road to dragon transformation? Kill it. Cultivation. Key refining level 3. 11%. Li Quanqing was unwilling to let go of this guy's noble bloodline, and he would definitely find a female golden patent alien species for the two of them to kiss. Brother King, tomorrow is the day for the party. Don't break your promise in the storage bag. A 100-mile sound transmission node suddenly vibrated, and Zihangai's smiling voice came out. Li Quanqing saw this, and promptly sent a message back. The next day, Li Quanqing walked into the market alone, and came to the end of the familiar monster street, in front of a luxurious cave. Fang. He had been here before, and participated in the small trading meeting held by Yunjizi, and bought those snake eggs of the green water python. Now that he came again, his status and position had changed drastically compared to before. Master Quanqing, I'm waiting for you here on purpose. Please come in. Yunjizi was standing at the entrance, with a leopard head, round eyes, and a beard, and he smiled heartily and enthusiastically. He was originally a casual cultivator at the 6th level of key refining, and was valued by an elder of the Yun family, and given the surname Yun. You're welcome, fellow Taoist. Li Quanqing bowed. Looking at the young man in green robes with a straight back in front of him, Yunjizi revealed a trace of jealousy that was well hidden in the depths of his eyes. He has been in the 6th level of key refining for nearly 10 years. He was tortured to death by the bottleneck, and had no choice but to sell himself to the Yun family. This is exactly the sadness and helplessness of most casual cultivators. Dao Aoli, please, my son is waiting. Yunjizi led the way in front, acting like a servant. The person he mentioned was called Yun Yangzi, a true descendant of Zioyao Island, a descendant of the foundation building generation. Now he is only 27 years old, but he has already reached the 8th level of key refining. In addition, he is of noble birth. He is considered the leader of this circle. We greet Senior Li. The hall was full of cultivators, most of whom were at the 3rd or 4th level of key refining. The 5th and 6th levels could be counted on 2 hands. Among them were people from the 4 major families, as well as those from key refining families and casual cultivators, as many as 70 or 80. As Li Quanqing stepped into the hall, they all stood up respectfully and saluted. Their postures were very humble, almost flattering. Dao, please sit at the head. Yunjizi did not even look at them, and led him to the front, and climbed the steps. After lifting a layer of curtains, an ancient scene appeared in front of him. Antique porcelain, precious light, and the fragrance in the beast swallowing copper furnace, which turned into a crane shape with wings spread out to fly. In addition to Zihangaiu, there were only 2 cultivators sitting there, looking at him curiously. One of them was wearing a cloud white free-spirited suit, tall and handsome, with a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth, and his temperament was like a spring breeze. It was Yun Yangzi. The other was about 25 or 26 years old, also with the 7th level of key refining. He was wearing a grey robe, and had an old-fashioned face. He was a direct descendant cultivator of the Tonghe Wan family, Wangujian. Hello, fellow Taoists. Li Quanqing spoke generously, neither humble nor arrogant, and sat leisurely on the last seat. He talked and laughed with these top 2nd generation cultivators. Chapter 63, 100 Years of Ice Spirit. Li Quanqing sat upright in his seat. The curtain fell, blocking the outside world from prying. But from his perspective, he could look down at the monks in the hall. His mentality could not help but be superior. You too, this is the Li family's genius I mentioned to you. Now he is a first-class master of refining weapons. Zihangaiu smiled sweetly, her eyes moving, like a big red butterfly dancing among the flowers. It's true that he is rising to prominence. In the future, the position of the head of the Li family's weapon hall must belong to you. Yun Yangzi raised his teacup, and smiled to release his kindness, which made people feel very good. Li Quanqing didn't dare to respond, fearing that he would be beaten by the 3rd elder, so he also raised his teacup to return the gift. Dao Aoli has a handsome face, and has already reached the 7th level of key refining. How old are you this year? Wang Gujian said nothing, and actually explored his background. I was born with a young face. Actually, I will be 24 after the Chinese New Year. I can't compare to those real geniuses. Li Quanqing shook his head, his face unchanged, and exaggerated his age by a few years. Yes, the fairy Quanchu from the Li family always calls fellow Daoist Quanqing senior brother when she sees him. Zihangaiu was trying to smooth things over. The 2 families have always been on good terms, and share the same spirit. A 23-year-old key refining level 7, although not as good as that top-grade spiritual root Li Quanqing, is also very good. Yun Yangzi sipped the fragrant tea, and the white mist rose up, covering his inexplicably relaxed expression, and his voice was still as gentle as a spring breeze. Sir, can we start? Yunjizi stood by and asked carefully. Let them start. Yun Yangzi nodded lightly. With the sound of a clear and pleasant jade chime, a cultivator in the hall stood up, saluted from a distance to the head, and then took out the treasure he was going to trade. A bottle of first grade middle grade golden wind jade dew pills, most suitable for cultivators with golden and water spiritual roots. In exchange, Li Quanqing lowered his eyelids slightly, quietly watching the cultivator's performance below. This feeling was really refreshing. Young master, your tea is cold. A concubine came over with a pot of water, with a face like a peach blossom, exquisite curves, plump and round, and a pair of watery almond eyes staring at him. It seemed that she was looking forward to something happening. Li Quanqing is already 20 years old this year, full of blood and vigor, and naturally he is not a vegetarian. Besides, sometimes going along with the crowd is also an attitude. He slapped the girl's buttocks, her flesh rippled, and he held her in his arms unceremoniously. Here is a tea. Young master, please be gentle. I can't bear it, the female cultivator cried delicately, her eyes moving. Quite charming and moving. I guess she has practiced the art of seduction. Hearing this, Li Quanqing rubbed his hands vigorously. He rubbed the fish heads in the fish pond every day, and he had already rubbed out the feeling. The girl cried softly, and her cheeks suddenly became hot, with 2 red clouds flying up, her earlobes blushing, and her soft body trembling slightly. Seeing this, Yun Yang's eyes were full of admiration and envy, and he really accepted this guy. The monks in the hall stood up one after another, and the treasures they took out were very ordinary. Li Quanqing looked at it without interest. 3 pieces of top-grade golden marrow jade in exchange for magic weapons. Finally, someone shouted out something that interested him. The white jade was flawless and crystal clear. It seemed that there was golden chalcedony flowing in the deepest part, and it looked extraordinary. This was a first-class treasure material. The spiritual jade was wrapped in extremely pure Gengjin spiritual energy, which was very rare. Li Quanqing took a look and found that these 3 pieces of golden marrow jade were the size of a human head, just suitable for practicing the glass jade bone body. A low-grade kingly sword. Will you sell it? The young man shouted out his price, and the light words came out from the curtain, and the originally noisy hall suddenly became quiet. Young master, if you like any treasure, you can let me call it for you. The girl in his arms blushed and said, sweating and panting, and she was a little out of breath. Li Quanqing really didn't know this rule, and nodded. Then you call next time. The casual cultivator in the hall heard the price and hesitated. Senior, can I exchange it for a medium-grade kingly sword? Li Quanqing curled his lips. A few stones. You want to exchange for a medium-grade magic weapon? Dreaming. My young master said that he can make up for the spirit stones or add a set of white bone netherworld needles. You can choose. The concubine's cheeks were red, but the words she shouted were cold and arrogant, and the contrast in her expression made people want to conquer. In the end, the casual cultivator still asked for the set of white bone needles. It's a pity that, since I got the white bone netherworld needle, I haven't tried to test its power in a fight with anyone. Li Quanqing played with the 3 golden marrow jades and threw the girl aside. He really liked that kind of needle-shaped magic weapon. The trade continued, and he made a lot of moves and bought some animal food pills and other pills that were beneficial to the growth of spirit beasts. Now the Quanqing Pavilion shop in the market can earn 60 to 70 spirit stones every month, and it is not short of money. After all, the goods he took out were free, with no cost, all profit. However, Li Quanqing would occasionally go to the weapon hall to fire and refine weapons, pretending to be, and steal iron ore. After the last cultivator finished the transaction, Li Quanqing felt that it was boring. Wang Gujian next to him suddenly took out a jade bottle, 1 Tanghua pill in exchange for cultivation resources useful for the late stage of key refining. As soon as these words came out, the hall suddenly fell into madness, and some people wanted to rush in on the spot. Zihangyu and Yunjizi next to them were the same. Their eyes were red. They were both at the 6th level of key refining, and they were determined to get it. Yun Yangzi looked at the mark on the pill bottle and said in a slightly shocked tone, "Did your brother make this?" Wang Gujian hummed and raised his chin with some pride. "He was promoted to the first-class top-grade alchemist a few days ago and gave me this Tanghua pill." Zihangyu explained in a low voice beside him. His brother is the famous Wangu, a top-grade wood spirit root, the foundation building seed of the Wan family. Little Pill King, Wangu. Li Quanqing has heard of this name, and his reputation is even greater than that of Li Quanqing, a sword cultivator. The appearance of Tang He pill completely ignited the whole scene, and everyone took out all their belongings to gamble. In the end, it was Zhihangai who bought the pill. She was born in the direct line of the Z family. Although her spirit root talent was average, she was very popular with a certain foundation building great cultivator, and had a rich family background. Seeing Yan Ji's unwilling expression, Yan Yangzi comforted him. Don't worry, since Brother Guhi can refine Tong Huadan, he must have some. I will ask for one for you later. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for your trouble. Yan Jizi was immediately grateful and expressed his loyalty. After training the dog, Yan Yangzi took out a treasure like an ice cube with satisfaction, and a bone-biting chill surged. A piece of 100-year-old ice soul can assist water-attributed cultivators in practicing ice magic. In exchange for the thing I like. Li Quanqing had never heard of this thing, but it didn't stop him from being moved. He had been coveting the power of ice magic for a long time, and naturally he couldn't let it go at this time. Zhihangai was also very surprised. This kind of thing can only be produced in the North Cold Ice Field. Did your Yun family's fleet go so far on the mainland? Chapter 64. North Frost Plain. The fist-sized ice soul lay in Yun Yang's palm, like a piece of eternal ice, releasing amazing coldness one after another. As expected of a Z family member, his ancestors were from Bihanian, and I recognized him at a glance. Yun Yangzi smiled and said, it's a pity that Bihanian is far away, and it's very difficult for the Yishan Yuns how to reach it, but our Yun family's caravan is very lucky. We just happened to run into a giant and caravan traveling around the continent. Not only Bihanian, but also the special spiritual objects of Nanhuangling, West Desert, and Central Shenzhou can be seen in this Zhiao conference. The voices of the two were not covered up, and they went directly out of the curtain, and were heard clearly by the cultivators in the hall. Li Quanqing only realized at this time that he was advertising. Calculating the time, the Zhiao Island conference was indeed about to start. Yun Yangzi did another wave of publicity, and then began to exchange ice souls. There are the most water-attributed cultivators in the East China Sea's Yuxin world, and there are many interested people, and the bidding sounds are one after another. Li Quanqing directly made a powerful move, a top-grade magic weapon, the green scale shield. Would you like to exchange it? He has now refined 2 more green scale shields as a reserve of spirit stones, so he has no shortage of such defensive magic weapons. I'll exchange it with fellow Daoist Li. Yun Yangzi nodded in agreement, and he didn't really care about what treasure to exchange. Now that the news of the numerous treasures in the Zhiao conference will spread throughout the Qinghai Islands with these family cultivators, his goal has been achieved. Li Quanqing took the 100-year ice soul, which felt icy cold to the touch, and also came with a jade slip that taught people how to refine it. I'm going to return to Zhiao Island in 2 days. Fellow Daoist, do you want to go with me to watch the fun? Yun Yangzi made an invitation. Li Quanqing refused without even thinking. Yulong Island is busy with things, so let's wait a while. He was not familiar with the other party. What if this guy had bad intentions and wanted to harm him? That's fine. The Zhiao conference will last for several months. Auctions and private trade fairs will be held almost every day. You won't have to worry about not being able to buy the treasure you want. After putting away the Bingpo, Li Quanqing said goodbye and returned to Yulong Island. He had earlier used the stone spirit seal to manipulate the terrain, extending a series of embankments protruding from the shore, crisscrossing and forming dozens of flat fish ponds. Each fish pond is about 100 acres in size, with a wide and neat surface, which looks spectacular, and can be used to raise different groups of spirit beasts. However, now only 2 or 3 fish ponds are full of vitality, and the others are still empty. Li Quanqing took out the bait and animal food pills, walked on the embankment and started feeding. A watery green water python climbed up the embankment and began to act coquettishly. Its body was nearly 10 meters long, as thick as a bowl, and there were still scales and blood at the corners of its mouth. A guilty conscience. Green water python, you must not let the master know that I'm eating secretly, but the big black carp tastes so delicious that I can't control myself. Cultivation. Key refining level 1, 87%. You went to hunt secretly again. Li Quanqing looked speechless. As these spirit snakes grew up, the hunting instinct in their blood gradually awakened, and they would steal food from time to time. Even if he increased the bait he fed them, it was useless. It seemed that in their eyes, lively animals were naturally more delicious than other foods. The boy was about to teach it a lesson when he suddenly saw the green water python's abdomen bulging and a little bloated. He was immediately delighted. "So you are pregnant, then I forgive you." Except for this female snake, the other green water pythons did not escape the end of being beaten. The spiritual beast hehuan pill developed by the family is really effective. Li Quanqing fed the fish and checked the thousands of green jade carp eggs. Some of the fry had already hatched, and the fish cubs that emerged were smaller than fingers and were preying on plankton in the water. He crushed a handful of spiritual bait and sprinkled it into the water and heavily protected the fish pond with formation flags to ensure that no moths would appear. After finishing his work, Li Quanqing checked the harvest. He first took out a piece of golden jade, about the size of a palm, like white jade, with golden liquid flowing inside, which was very beautiful. It was very consistent with the properties of the glazed jade bone technique. This technique is good in every way. It is convenient to practice and does not require effort. The only problem is to hold or in your mouth. Li Quanqing frowned, and with a click, he broke off a corner of the spiritual jade, not knowing what it would taste like this time. A drop of golden chalcedony fell from the broken gap, and it made a dull sound when it fell to the ground. This drop of chalcedony was like mercury, condensed and not dispersed, and turned into a golden bean the size of a soybean, composed of pure Gengjin spiritual energy. Li Quanqing did not dislike it, picked up the golden bean, blew it, and stuffed it directly into his mouth, practicing the body refining technique. So spicy, so spicy, so spicy. The golden jadeite melted in his mouth, and an indescribable spiciness instantly swept through his mouth. It was an endless stream of Gengjin air, shooting everywhere like a sword beam, clanging when hitting the teeth, just like forging iron. If Li Quanqing had not already achieved a small success in body refining, his mouth would probably have been pierced at this time. Even so, he still had a mouthful of mouth ulcers, and it hurt to lick it. Rubbish technique. Li Quanqing covered his mouth. Tears welled up in his eyes, and cursed very dirty. Cursing aside, the effect of the jadeite was really good. Li Quanqing looked inside himself, and saw that most of the blood and flesh meridians had already shown a bronze-like metallic luster. Moreover, this color continued to spread to the bones, giving people a feeling of indestructibility. With a light wave of his fist, infinite power suddenly leaked out like a floodgate, enough to rival the 5th or 6th level of key refining body refining cultivators. Try the taste of this precious jade. Li Quanqing threw the broken jade in his hand into his mouth. A refreshing and cool taste burst out, with a hint of sweetness, and a sweet aftertaste, a bit like eating vanilla ice cream. Compared with the previous chalcedony, it can be said to be a world of ice and fire. When the white jade in the mouth is digested, the mouth ulcer is not so painful. Refine 3 pieces of golden marrow jade, plus the iron ore I bought. It is enough to practice a bronze body. Li Quanqing thought happily. By then, just based on the body training, he will be comparable to the 7th level key training cultivator. But I still can't waste time. When I participate in the Zioao conference, I will follow the family's fleet. After Li Quanqing made a decision, he took out the 100-year-old ice soul and prepared to refine it. Strands of amazing coldness bloomed, and the surrounding seawater froze into ice chips, which was terrifying. I heard that Bihaniwan is the coldest place in the world of immortal cultivation, with wind and snow howling all year round. It is rumored that there are ancient icebergs that existed when the world was first created. It's simply unimaginable. Li Quanqing held the ice soul with both hands and began to slowly refine it according to the secret method in the jade slip. He wrapped himself with magic power, and wisps of white air were drawn out, like flowing ice, drilling into the danshan along the meridians. Swish. In the end, the cold essence of the entire 100-year-old ice soul was absorbed, leaving only a mass of ice debris and impurities, which collapsed with a bang. Li Quanqing's eyebrows were grey, and the whole person was frozen into an ice sculpture, wrapped in a layer of crystal clear ice. In his danshan, an ice soul bead was quietly suspended in the corner, restraining all the coldness. Crack. He broke through the ice layer and walked out, shivering with cold, but his mood was very wonderful. Ice power. The young man shouted in his heart, and a surge of blue sea magic power surged and gushed out along the meridians. In this process, the ice soul bead automatically released a chill, which also bloomed with magic power. A layer of frost spread instantly, turning into a long arrow in the shape of an ice ridge, which was cold and shining in the sun. Li Quanqing used the water dragon technique again, condensing it into a lifelike water dragon, and then used the ice soul orb to freeze it into an ice ball. The ice dragon is beautiful, but its power is average. The undercurrent in the water dragon's body is frozen, so it can only be used to hit people. Ice spells use extreme cold temperatures to freeze the enemy in ice and seal them, which is very suitable for defense and control. It is completely possible to control a waterfall of tens of millions of tons of water, turning it into an iceberg that falls from the sky and knocks down all enemies. Li Quanqing fell into deep thought and began to brainstorm, thinking about how to use it in the battle. But in general, it is always a good thing to have one more magic method. It is worth his long wait. Chapter 65 Bronzebone Body. Bronzebone Body, done. Li Quanqing sat on the beach and swallowed the last piece of golden marrow jade, mixed with saliva, and swallowed it into his stomach. As the technique was running, he suddenly swelled up, as if he had turned into a metal giant. A rich bronze color bloomed from his body, shining as brightly as the sun, and even his skin gave people a feeling of indestructibility. His bones were thick and hard, as if they were bronze sculptures, and every move contained extremely terrifying power. If he got close, a cultivator in the late stage of key refining would not be able to stop him. Inhale. Li Quanqing's chest rose and fell, swallowing and exhaling a lot of air, making a sound like a bellows. He blinked his eyes, and even his pupils were dyed copper green. His whole body was tempered and round, without the slightest flaw. Unparalleled power. Clang, clang. The young man took out the kingly sword and slashed at his body. Sparks flew everywhere and barely left a shallow white mark on his skin. I feel that I'm really strong now. Li Quanqing grinned. Against the backdrop of bronze skin, even his smile looked a bit ferocious. He stood up and took 2 steps, adapting to the sudden surge of strength, and his feet made big pits on the beach. Body refining exercises rarely require mana support, and can maintain this state for a long time, and can beat people all day long. After shedding his bronze body, Li Quanqing regained his normal body shape. His skin was crystal clear like jade, and his hair was shining. He seemed to be more handsome. The boy counted his equipment and spiritual stone reserves, and felt that it was time to set off for Zioao Islands. Woo, woo. The low sound of the horn echoed, and a large spiritual boat slowly set off from Baoqingfang City, full of monks, rumbling, and headed for the Zioao Islands. The Yun family's Zioao conference was so popular that the Li and Zi families specially arranged a large spiritual boat for transportation, and made a lot of money just from the boat tickets. Zioao Islands are more than 7,000 miles away from Qinghai Islands, which is not close. The spiritual boat traveled for 2 days and 1 night. There were monks getting on the boat and leaving. Li Quanqing stayed in his room until he finally reached his destination. The sea breeze was salty and fishy. Looking up, a string of pearl-like islands appeared in front of him, with white sand and clear water, and various spiritual trees and forests planted on the island. A huge mountain-like boat was suspended above Zioao Island. Its color was as white as clouds, almost blending into the entire sky. The cloud boat that moves mountains. The Yun family is best at making spiritual boats. They have many fleets under their command, and have been traveling to various spiritual islands for trade for many years. But the spiritual boat is sailing in the sea water. There is also a treasure ship that can be transformed into a standing ship and cross the sky, crisscrossing the sky. That is the cloud boat, the happy cloud boat. This is the most core inheritance of the Yun family, and only the direct line can learn and master it. The cloud boat that moves mountains in front of you is a cloud boat of the 3rd level Gengjin level. Even if the Yun family has been passed down for thousands of years, there is only this one heritage passed down by the ancestors. Every time the cloud boat that moves mountains returns from a long journey on the mainland, it will rest for 10 years, and the boat maker will perform various maintenance. Dear fellow Taoists, we have arrived at Zioao Islands. Please jump off the boat in an orderly manner. Fighting is prohibited. A cold voice came from the top of the spirit boat, accompanied by a strong fluctuation of mana. It was a powerful key refining great perfection master from the Li family. I don't know which elder it was. Li Quanqing jumped off the spirit boat and walked on the waves. His posture was elegant and graceful, which made others envious. Xiaoyao main island is now covered by formations to prevent outsiders from prying. Only a few branch islands are open and rent caves for monks to live in. The most lively one is the cloud boat that moves mountains above. It is dark and heavy above the head. It is the main venue of the entire Xiaoyao conference, which is extremely oppressive. Ride a cloud boat. Ride a cloud boat. 10 spiritual sands per person. Rent out flying magic tools and take people to the sky. The price is cheap and affordable. King Feng Crane, a domesticated spiritual beast, can be rented for a long time or a short time. It is hardy and easy to raise. There are too many cultivators on the sea nearby. Various spiritual boats and buildings are spread all over the water. There are heads everywhere. The colorful magic lights are blooming, attracting customers. It can be said that a sea market has been formed, stretching for dozens of miles and very lively. After all, the majority of cultivators do not have the ability to fly on the cloud boat that moves mountains. Therefore, various rental businesses that take people to the sky are the most popular. Li Quanqing turned around for a few times and finally chose the official transport ship of the Yun family and boarded a first-level cloud boat floating on the sea. The appearance of the cloud boat is a circle larger than the ordinary spiritual boat. It looks like an oval balloon boat. It is made of unknown materials and looks very light. Each boat can carry 50 people, and the boat ticket costs 10 lingxi per person. In a round trip, you can earn 10 lingxi in a short time. Pay attention. Start the boat. The boatman is from an unknown place and speaks with a fisherman's accent, which is very friendly. With the infusion of mana, the whole cloud boat emits a subtle humming sound, flies straight up, and then suddenly accelerates and soars into the sky. Li Quanqing looked through the porthole. As it slowly approaches, the face of the moving mountain cloud boat becomes clearer and clearer, like a huge city hanging thousands of feet in the sky, with buildings everywhere. It is grand and majestic, shuttling through the blue sky, as if it is a miraculous creation in mythology. The white hull is as light as a cloud, and as majestic as a giant whale, standing proudly in the sky, with magnificent momentum. The sun shines on its surface, shining brightly, reflecting a series of gorgeous light and shadow trajectories, like a dream, and the mana fluctuations that inadvertently overflow are vast and amazing. Unfortunately, this mountain-moving cloud boat is too old. Over the past 1,000 years, people have added too many new buildings to it, making it look like a bloated and old man. Attention! After boarding the mountain-moving cloud boat, you must apply for an identity jade card and a temporary residence permit as soon as possible. Otherwise, once night falls, my Yun family's law enforcement team will not be merciful. The manager of this cloud boat was quite responsible and told many rules that needed to be paid attention to. After he finished speaking, he glanced at Li Quanqing's fish and dragon pattern key refining robe and smiled flatteringly. Of course, this fellow Taoist from the Qingyu Li family does not need to be so troublesome, just enjoy it. Moreover, your Li family has also contracted a piece of pavilions and caves on the cloud boat, and fellow Taoists can stay there for free. Just ask those law enforcement monks for the specific location. As soon as these words came out, they immediately attracted countless envious eyes. As expected of a foundation building family, the treatment of the clan members is really damn good. Envious, jealous. Thank you for telling me, fellow Taoist. Li Quanqing smiled gently and operated the blue sea tide rising technique to suppress his aura to the 6th level of key refining, which was not too eye-catching. After he boarded the Yuntao ferry and showed the Li family's identity token, he was allowed to pass directly. After passing through the array of prohibitions and stepping onto the wide deck like an island, the view in front of him suddenly opened up, and the sound of noise came into his ears. There were many shops, one after another, and the scenery of a vast fairy city slowly unfolded in front of him, lively and prosperous. Senior, this is your first time to the Xiaoyao conference. Do you need a guide? Li Quanqing looked around and immediately attracted many brokers. A group of teenagers surrounded him, looking at the green jadefish dragon robe. Knowing that he had met a big family, Li Quanqing casually picked one that he liked and threw a few spiritual sands over. "It's you. Okay senior, please." The chubby boy took the spiritual stone and immediately smiled and led the docile spiritual beast he raised at home. Blue and white cattle? Not bad. I like it very much. Looking at the big buffalo with green fur and black flower-like stripes in front of him, Li Quanqing was in a better mood immediately. He liked green things the most. "Senior, where are we going?" the young man asked cautiously. "Let's go to the place where young spirit beasts are sold first." Li Quanqing had already made up his mind. The blue and white cow slowly shook its hooves and walked forward, parting the crowd. It was really too big, with shops and buildings everywhere, and crowded with people. It was estimated that more than half of the cultivators from the nearby Wanli area had come. Spirit beasts, as one of the most popular goods among cultivators, occupy a large area, and all kinds of strange monsters are locked in cages. The young family really took some thought and divided the 5 major areas according to the bloodline of the monsters. Li Quanqing glanced at the sign. He boarded the cloud boat from the south, and the first place he came to was naturally the unique monster area of Ninhuangling. The fire element in the air became slightly active, dispersing the seawater clouds everywhere, and the nose was very dry when breathing. Li Quanqing, who was born in the East China Sea, was a little uncomfortable. It seems that the main ones are fire-attributed spirit beasts. He felt a little interested and patted the big horn of the blue ox. "Let's go in and take a look." Chapter 66. Golden Flame Feathered Tiger. When Li Quanqing walked into the monster area, the air was slightly hot and distorted. At the entrance, a large lizard with 2 heads was lying there, with red scales and golden pupils. Its huge body looked like a western dragon with its wings plucked off. Its 4 vertical pupils stared at the big blue bull under Li Quanqing's buttocks, revealing a greedy expression, and its saliva dripped on the ground with a sizzling sound, emitting a sulfur smell. Roar, roar. The fiery red lizard opened its mouth and roared continuously, with a faint glow of hot fire in the depths of its throat, and it seemed to want to eat a whole roasted cow. Unfortunately, the collars worn at the base of their necks began to glow, and a layer of ice blue lines quickly spread in the flesh and blood, and the cold air surged, extinguishing the flames. The 2-headed fire lizard roared for a long time, but only spit out wisps of green smoke, and then wilted again helplessly. The flat-horned blue bull snorted and continued to walk in, not caring at all, as if it was used to such a big scene. "Dao, do you want this 7-level key refining 2-headed giant fire lizard? It's cheap. Only 2,799 spirit stones. Take this mighty mount home." The owner of this lizard monster stood aside, smiling, and began to sell. There was also a coolly dressed young lady next to her, feeding the fire lizard with raw meat, not disdaining the blood at all. Seeing that there was something delicious, the giant fire lizard immediately became energetic, and its 2 heads stretched out like a giant python, swallowing the delicious meat with big mouthfuls, and its fangs were sharp. Whether in appearance or cultivation, it is indeed first class. But Li Quanqing was not very interested. First, he needed a cub, and second, this fire lizard monster had a rebellious personality, and the demon fire in its body was violent and hot, which was not suitable for assisting in refining equipment. Then he wandered into the shop in front, and Li Quanqing was really eye-opening. Various land monsters appeared in an endless stream, and it was dazzling to see. Most of them are fire-attributed monsters, with a small number of earth-attributed monsters. It can be seen that the climate of Ninhuangling is hot and mountainous. The black fire crow, a monster with 3 claws and feathers as black as iron, is said to have inherited a trace of the blood of the golden crow. It stares at the passers-by coldly. The 5-colored phoenix, which is larger than a peacock, spreads its wings and cackles, with wisps of flames lingering between its wings. Not only is it extraordinary in appearance, but it is said that the meat is also extremely delicious, and the eggs it lays are even more tender and nutritious. Long-term use has a chance to slightly increase the strength of the fire spirit root. Li Quanqing even saw a few purple fire centipedes, swallowing and spitting poisonous fire, burning stones and melting gold, and the dark purple eggs are like sharp blades, scraping on the rocks, and making a harsh sound. In the most coarse ore, he actually saw a red flame dragon eagle, which according to ancient records has a trace of the blood of the flame dragon. It has the potential to impact the foundation building period monster. Unfortunately, this red flame dragon eagle was not only an adult, but he also couldn't afford it. With so many shops, don't you sell baby spirit beasts? Li Quanqing frowned and found this problem. Senior, the cloud boat of moving mountains took 5 or 6 years to return from the mainland. Even if there were baby spirit beasts before, they are either dead or grown up now. The boy next to him explained in a low voice, these spirit beasts are controlled by blood contracts, and life and death are a matter of thought. Although they are not as loyal as the spirit beasts raised since childhood, they will never betray. Li Quanqing heard this and shook his head slightly and decided to go to the other 4 spirit beast areas to take a look. Seeing this, the boy gritted his teeth. In order to earn a few more spirit sands, Senior, I will ask for you again. After that, he trotted all the way and disappeared into the crowd. Li Quanqing was stunned, so he followed him and stayed where he was and waited. About half an incense stick of time passed, and the boy came out from a corner again, his face flushed, jumping and shouting, "Found it! Senior, I found it! Speak slowly, don't rush." Li Quanqing was amused and handed him a spirit stone, which was blinding. This, so much. The boy's face was flushed, and he almost fainted with happiness. He looked only 15 or 16 years old, which was the age of youth and ignorance. He should have practiced without worries. Unfortunately, he was born in a humble family and could only work hard early to fight for a future. The boy hid the spirit stone in his arms like a thief and made sure that no one around noticed them. Then he breathed a sigh of relief. "Did you find the spirit beast cub?" Li Quanqing touched the smooth and shiny fur of the big blue ox and asked slowly. "Yeah." The boy nodded vigorously. "It's a cultivator who practices ice skills. He sealed the spirit beast cubs in ice to maintain their lives, which is why they have been preserved until now. Ice sealing and forced hibernation are indeed good methods, but they will also damage the life source of the spirit beast." Li Quanqing muttered to himself and looked at the boy. "Lead the way." They turned around and came to a remote shop. When they saw this ice cultivator, he was spreading out a large table with more than a dozen spirit beast cubs on it, basking in the sun lazily. Among the fur of these beast cubs, you can still see fine ice chips, which slowly melted in the sun. "Is it you who wants to buy spirit beast cubs?" The owner of the shop was a tall and thin middle-aged cultivator, wearing a long robe, like a bamboo pole, and his face was as pale as a dead person. Li Quanqing's eyes lit up, and he looked at the 3 cubs in the other's arms. There were 3 golden tabby tiger cubs the size of kittens, with a mass of flame-like red hair on their foreheads. Their eyes were not yet open, and their furry ears were turning around, looking very cute. "Achoo." Because they had just been unsealed from the ice, one of the tiger cubs was still sneezing, revealing its tender little tongue and canine teeth, looking very cute. Li Quanqing had to admit that he was indeed a fan of appearance. "Dao, what kind of monster is this?" He rubbed his palms and had the urge to pet the cat. "Dao, you have good eyesight, and you picked out the most valuable treasure here at first sight." The owner smiled and said, "This is the golden flame feather tiger, a monster unique to Nanhuangling. When it grows up, it can rival a cultivator in the late stage of key refining. It has its own innate monster fire, burning gold fire, which has a miraculous effect in refining metal ores, and is most suitable for assisting weapon refiners." He reached out and grabbed it, and lifted a pair of small wings from the back of the tiger cub. It turned out to be a flying monster. Li Quanqing's heart was pounding. "Dao, how much are these golden flame tigers for sale?" The middle-aged cultivator's smile became more and more cordial when he heard this. 2,000 low-grade spirit stones for 1 cub, no bargaining. This is an anling exotic monster. It will at least be in the late stage of key refining in the future. Dao will definitely not lose out if you buy it. I'm afraid you won't find a second shop selling golden flame tiger cubs, even if you go around the Ishan. These words are indeed good, but the problem is that they are too expensive. The price of an adult monster in the late stage of key refining is only around 2,000 spirit stones. Li Quanqing wanted to bargain, but he was not good at it. Fortunately, the boy who led the way next to him was really smart and took the initiative to speak for him, and he inadvertently released a breath of key refining level 7 magic power. In the end, he successfully saved 500 spirit stones. Dao, do you want to buy 2? You can give me a cheaper price. The boss looked at him eagerly. 1 is enough. Li Quanqing didn't have that much money. He had to save the spirit stones to buy other treasures. He stretched out his palm and touched the tiger cubs one by one. Meow meow meow. Golden flame feather tiger. Meow meow meow. Meow meow meow. Meow meow meow. Is this a cat or a tiger? It won't hibernate for too long and freeze its brain. Li Quanqing looked at the stupid and ignorant appearance of the tiger cub, and without saying a word, he changed to touch another one. Cold-blooded killer. Golden flame feather tiger. I'm a killer walking in the dark. Dare to imprison my humans. I will use my claws to cut your throat. Li Quanqing. This cat killer has cold and ruthless pupils, licking his paws by himself, and looks like he is not easy to mess with. Changed to another one. The last golden flame tiger is a little skinny. It is the little tiger cub that sneezed just now. The tip of its nose is pink and tender, and its appearance is particularly lovable. The big gradient cat that can spit fire. Ow. Chapter 67 King Feng Crane. Tigers are full of power. Golden flame feathered tiger. I want to roll up secretly and then surprise everyone. Tiger Lord. Attack. RR. Maturity 3%. Li Quanqing touched the little tiger cub. Warm, and furry, which felt very comfortable. RR. The little tiger opened its black and golden pupils, bit his fingers with its little tiger teeth, and turned its 2 round and fluffy ears around, full of power. I want this one. Li Quanqing happily handed over the spirit stone and held the golden flame tiger cub in his arms. It was so cute. The boss was also responsible and gave him a jade slip that recorded the experience of how to raise golden flame feathered tiger. Senior, where are we going now? The young man led the big blue ox out of the store, looking eager to try. Li Quanqing glanced at the sky and saw the sun setting in the west. The orange-red clouds covered the sky. The entire cloud boat that moved mountains seemed to be sailing in a sea of fire. It was particularly gorgeous. Let's stop here today. Take me to the gathering point of the King Gaiu Li family. Li Quanqing stroked the golden tabby cat and had no intention of wandering around. Okay senior. The blue waves were rippling. The Li family rented a large high-level cave house facing the lake for their family members to live in. The pure spiritual energy mixed with water vapor hit Li Quanqing in the face. He didn't expect that there was a big lake on this mountain-moving cloud boat. The Yun family simply expanded this treasure ship into a moving fairy city fortress. Hello, Brother Quanqing. Good evening, Brother Quanqing. Li Quanqing walked in this area, and many people greeted him. He was considered a celebrity in the clan. He came to the cafeteria. It was time for dinner. Give me a bowl of monster milk, a little sweeter, thank you. The milky white monster milk was brought in front of him. It was obviously just boiled and still emitting a wisp of hot steam. Drink it. He put Jinyanhu on the table. The big bowl was bigger than its whole body, reflecting the confused eyes of the tiger cub. Fortunately, driven by instinctive hunger, Jinyanhu tried to lick it, and the warm and sweet animal milk flowed into his mouth. Ayo. My family eat this kind of thing. Ayo. It really makes the tiger crazy. Jinyanhu grabbed the edge of the bowl with his 2 front paws, supported his body with his hind legs, stood up swayingly, and almost buried his head in the bowl. The pink little tongue took big gulps of milk, and the milk stain splashed everywhere, dripping down his whiskers, almost turning into a harlequin cat. Where did you kidnap this kitten from, my cousin? It's so cute. A gentle laughter like water sounded, and it was Li Quanqing who came over, wearing a water blue flowing fairy feather dress, with bright eyes, watery eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Junior sister, I have to correct you. This is a tiger demon, not a kitten. Li Quanqing spoke seriously, although he also felt that this spirit beast looked more like a cat. Oh, yes, you are right. Li Quanqing perfunctorily held her chin. Her nose was round and straight, and she even had some baby fat. When did you arrive? I couldn't find you before. I was delayed in my practice. I just arrived today. What's wrong? Li Quanqing's fingertips surged with magic power, controlling the animal milk that spilled on the table to fly up and fall back into the bowl. The creator of the water control technique probably didn't expect that someone had already practiced this technique to a superb level. It's actually used to feed cats? Nothing. I just want to give you a gift. The girl gathered a strand of hair hanging by her ear, blinked playfully, and smiled brightly, bright and moving. She took out 7 or 8 off-white bird eggs, with light green patterns wrapped around the surface, like a breeze, giving people a sense of lightness. Is this a monster egg? Li Quanqing was surprised and picked up a monster egg to observe it carefully. This should be the egg of some bird, which is smaller than the palm of the hand, smooth and white, very light, and contains a kind of surging vitality. Don't you like to collect weird monster cubs? I just happened to see it and bought it. Li Quanqing's words were very natural. This is the egg of the King Feng crane. Just consider it as a gift to celebrate your becoming the master of Yulong Island. It turned out to be a King Feng crane. Li Quanqing immediately became interested. This is a spiritual beast from Zhongshenshao. It is very common. It is said that everyone there has one. Whenever the monks travel, they will be accompanied by white cranes. The cranes sing melodiously and clearly, with elegant postures and white wings. They look like immortals, free and easy. Later, with the great reclamation of the East China Sea, many King Feng cranes also migrated here. It is considered one of the most common and popular flying mounts. I heard from the boss that these King Feng cranes are the purest bloodline of Zhongshan, ancient and noble. Their parents gave birth to the next batch of crane eggs on the return voyage of the Ishan Yunzhao, and now they are about to hatch. Li Quanqing opened her red lips slightly. Obviously she had also put some thought into it. Thank you, I like this gift very much. Li Quanqing put the crane eggs away and was thinking about whether to return the gift. At this time, Jinyan, who drank up all the animal milk and ate until his belly was round, like an orange gold plush ball, he lay there lazily, and his burps were full of milk. Why are all the spirit beasts I raise greedy? Li Quanqing was amused, and Li Quanqing next to him also showed a happy smile. They walked side by side, preparing to go back to the room to practice meditation. Li Quanqing told him that, although the things in those shops were good, the most precious treasures were still the auctions held by the Yun family themselves. That was the essence of the Zioyao conference. Small auctions are held almost every day, while large auctions are held every 10 days. It is bound to drain the spirit stones in the pockets of the casual cultivators within a radius of thousands of miles. Li Quanqing was naturally very interested when he heard this. In the next few days, he visited the spirit beast markets in the remaining areas, but unfortunately the results were not satisfactory. All the prices were very high. After all, they were transported across 1,000,000 miles of sea, and rare goods are in great demand. Li Quanqing felt that it would be more cost effective to hunt monsters himself and raise a few cubs. In a few days, it happened that another big auction was held, so he wrapped a black robe to cover his whole body and walked into the big auction hall. The venue was very large, enough to accommodate 10,000 people. The space was almost wide, and there was a lot of noise. There was a large area of black in front of him. There were no private rooms, no messy things. Everyone competed fairly, and the highest bidder won. Li Quanqing found a seat and sat down casually, activating the Ice Soul Pearl and exuding an aura of keep away from strangers. On the auction stage, auction items were presented one after another like flowing water, and sometimes someone started to bid. There were also many treasures that failed to be sold. The auction was going on all the time, day and night, and there were already cultivators sitting in their seats for nearly a month. Finally, a beautiful woman in a bright red dress walked up to the auction stage and bowed to everyone, and everyone was excited. The third Zioyao Grand Auction is now open. Please prepare the spiritual stones in your storage bags, and don't bid at will. The first item was displayed, which turned out to be a large yellow leaf, presented on a red silk tray, and the surface of the leaf was covered with golden scripture as small as flies. The foundation building technique with a leaf sitting meditation technique has a starting price of 2,500 low-grade spiritual stones, and each bid must not be less than 100 spiritual stones. Li Quanqing's eyes lit up. He didn't expect that it would be such a good treasure at the beginning, and he immediately looked forward to it. Chapter 68, See Suppressing Bell. The auctioneer opened the formation covering the tray so that everyone could see the withered yellow leaf. An ancient and mysterious aura bloomed, and countless golden inscriptions glowed together, shaking the air, and faintly heard bursts of Zen chanting like Huangzhang Dalu. This skill seems to be unusual. Li Quanqing touched his chin, thinking about what was wrong. A monk wrapped tightly behind him suddenly told the truth. It turned out to be the scripture skills of those immortal monks in the western desert. No wonder it was put up for auction. What those bulldonkeys like most is to trick others into practicing Buddhism. If their Taoism is not firm, they will easily be converted into Dharma protectors in the end. So that's it, the Buddhist scriptures? Li Quanqing suddenly realized. It is rumored that this world was originally only the immortal way. Later, a peerless genius, the immortal way true seed, suddenly claimed that he was taught the great way by a saint in a dream, and went to the west to obtain the true scriptures after going through untold hardships. Finally, he opened up a lineage of immortal monks in the western desert, converted a group of demons and monsters, and turned the barren desert into an oasis of life. In the end, his own merits were fulfilled, and a Buddha wheel was born behind his head. He broke through the void and ascended. Having said that, this withered leaf meditation is still very popular. Not to mention the group of casual practitioners. Many small families have never touched the foundation building method. In addition, there are no attribute restrictions for practicing this method, and all 5 elements of spiritual roots can enter the practice. In the end, the auction was sold at a high price of 7,000 spiritual stones. Li Quanqing was shocked, and suddenly felt that he was still a poor group. The first grade superior Zhe pill, produced by the alchemy master of the Tang Huan family, can assist the late stage cultivators of key refining to improve their cultivation. The auction continued, and the next items were not as popular as the foundation building method, and were considered normal. Li Quanqing only occasionally made a move, and bought some jade slips and medicinal herbs related to the cultivation of spiritual beasts, just to broaden his horizons. A 6-tusked white jade elephant, with the cultivation of key refining great perfection, bloodline from the western desert, gentle personality, long lifespan, most suitable as a guardian beast of the clan. A huge beast was led to the auction table, standing there like a huge white jade wall. Ordinary people were not as tall as its calves, and its 4 legs were as thick as pillars. Under the light, the skin of the white jade elephant was tough and thick, and the fine lines were almost invisible. The 6 broadsword-like tusks soared into the sky, majestic and magnificent. Most of the cultivators in the East China Sea saw this kind of monster creature for the first time, and their eyes were all curious. They didn't expect that such a huge spiritual beast could grow on the mainland. This 6-cornered white jade elephant was indeed very gentle. Even if it was led and looked at, it didn't get annoyed. It chewed a piece of food like sugar cane by itself. Every time it finished eating and swallowed it, someone would immediately continue to feed it to ensure that the spiritual beast could stay quiet. Seeing this scene, many patriarchs of small families were all moved. This is a demon beast at the great perfection of key refining. With its huge body and demonic aura, it can be invincible in the key refining realm if it is covered with armor and magic tools. With its long lifespan, it can be regarded as a cultivator at the half-step foundation building level. It is definitely the best choice to protect the family inheritance. Li Quanqing sat in his seat calmly, watching this group of people bidding frantically, and his dog brain was about to burst out. I wonder if I can feed this 6-tusked white jade elephant to the foundation building realm. Will there be a light ball reward? An idea popped up in his mind, but it was a pity that he couldn't test it at all. This group of people bid too fiercely, even more fiercely than the previous withered leaf meditation. Many patriarchs and sect masters of key refining families participated in it. In the end, the auction was sold at a high price of 8,800 spirit stones. So many spirit stones are enough to buy half of the foundation building spirit objects. Li Quanqing himself had the urge to rob. The auctioneer couldn't help but smile at the fierce price. He continued to introduce the next item, holding up a fist-sized aqua blue bell. The incomplete low-grade spiritual weapon Zenhei Bell is suitable for cultivators who practice water-based skills. It can release sonic attacks and has the effect of protecting souls. Low-grade spiritual weapon. As soon as these 4 words came out, the whole audience was immediately excited, and the eyes of all the cultivators became hot. Spiritual weapons are exclusive to foundation building cultivators. They have spirituality and can be of any size. They are stored in the danshan to nourish with mana. The auctioneer poured mana into it, and the aqua blue light surged, and the Zenhei bell quickly enlarged. In the end, it changed from the size of a fist to the size of an ordinary copper bell. The bell body was as blue as the sea, and the surface was engraved with unclear patterns. I don't know how many years it has gone through. These twisted patterns entangled and vaguely turned into two ancient immortal characters Zenhei. It's really a spiritual weapon. There was an uproar in the auction hall. But soon, these cultivators found something wrong. This big bell was too broken. A crack ran through it, almost splitting it in two. Its spiritual light was dim and almost shattered. Moreover, the most important bell tongue also disappeared, leaving only an empty shell. Without the bell tongue striking and vibrating, can it still send out sound wave attacks? Someone raised his own doubts. The auctioneer smiled and shrunk the Zenhei bell again, holding it in his hand and shaking it gently. Ding, ding. There were indeed sound waves, which turned into airwaves that shook the four directions, and the ripples spread like a vast ocean. But the power was just average. For a cultivator in the late stage of key refining, it could only cause dizziness. Dear guests, don't be discouraged. This was dug out from an ancient ruin by a Taoist friend. Maybe you will have a chance to get it and comprehend an ancient magic from it. Just the word Zenhei can tell how extraordinary this spiritual bell was. The auctioneer was eloquent and said nonsense that even she herself didn't believe. Li Quanqing's face showed a hint of interest. The sound of the bell vibrated just now, and the ripples of sound like water waves released by it looked quite familiar to him. That was a kind of sword energy. Li Quanqing himself practiced the green water sword art and was very familiar with this kind of thing. It was indeed a kind of sword energy in the shape of water waves, not the sound of a bell, but it was tangible without substance, and it acted directly on the soul. Could it be a sword technique to temper the soul? Li Quanqing's eyes lit up, not to mention that he had the support of the refining hall, and he might be able to complete the missing parts of this Zenhei bell. Fortunately, the starting price of this broken spiritual weapon was not high, only 900 spiritual stones. Li Quanqing finally won it with 1,800 spiritual stones. No money, no money. I'm back to the days before liberation overnight. Touching the shriveled storage bag, the boy's face wrinkled into a bitter good. Fortunately, this auction has come to an end, and the last finale treasure has appeared. A second level, low-grade meridian protecting pill. Even if a cultivator fails to break through the foundation building stage, it can still protect the meridians throughout the body and retain 90% of his cultivation, so that he won't die on the spot. Starting price, 3,000 low-grade spirit stones. The moment he heard the name of the pill, Li Quanqing patted his butt and left without any intention of participating in the competition. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Spiritual Bell Scripture. Li Quanqing sat in his room, playing with the fist-sized Zenhei bell, which was exquisite and blew like jade. Ding dong, he shook it slightly, and the water rippled, and a crisp sound came from the wall of the bell, like the sound of waves surging in the sea, which was pleasant to the ears. Ao next to him, the golden flame tiger cub raised his head from the animal milk can, trotted over curiously, and stretched out his fleshy claws to touch it. You can't use this to sharpen your claws. Li Quanqing grabbed the tiger cub by the back of the neck, threw it back in front of the milk can, and began to refine the Zenhei bell. With the influx of mana, the Zenhei bell suddenly dropped its hair, constantly changing size. The size of the Ruai magic ban is indeed a spiritual weapon. Li Quanqing stroked the magic ban on the surface of the bell wall. As a weapon refiner, it can be said that he gained a lot. Medium and large magic weapons like bells, tripods, and ships are generally spiritual weapon level and belong to the daily income of foundation building cultivators for danshan nourishment. After all, magic tools cannot be enlarged or reduced. A key refining monk carrying a large tripod to fight with others is a scene That is too beautiful to imagine. Li Quanqing turned the Zhenhe bell over and found that the copper button that hangs the bell tongue inside was indeed missing a part. The copper bells used by mortals are often hollow inside and need to be hit with a wooden hammer to make a sound. It is naturally impossible for a monk to refine a large bell as a spiritual tool and match it with an iron rod. That would be too low class. Moreover, after the bell-shaped spiritual tool is reduced, it is similar to a bell, so many bells will add bell tongues inside, which can be used as two magic tools. This crack looks like it was split by a sword. Li Quanqing touched the crack on the Zhenhe bell. Even after a long time, it still felt a little prickly. His Gengjin Sword Art had already mastered it to perfection, and he could easily detect that it was the residual sword energy, which was like a maggot attached to the bone eating away at the body of the bell. Li Quanqing used the power of the blue sea, rolling like a rushing river, to wipe out all the sword energy bit by bit. Ding ding ding. During this process, the Zhenhe bell also rang without wind, actively cooperating, and the wave-like patterns on the surface of the bell wall were blooming with shimmering waves. It is really worthy of being a spiritual weapon, with a hint of spirituality, and it is easy to use. Aoao, the sound of the bell echoed in the room. Even if it did not launch the power of killing, it still shook the soul, and made people's heads swell. Jinyan, who was so uncomfortable that he kept crying, and his furry tail was shaking. The little guy scratched with his claws and got directly into the milk can. The two wings that had not yet developed opened up, like a lid to block the mouth of the can, and it felt much better. The crisp bell sounded intermittently, and finally lasted for several days, before it was completely calmed down. Li Quanqing found that the magic power cultivated by the blue sea tide rising technique was very compatible with this spiritual weapon. The spirituality and power of the Zhenhe bell were brought to the extreme. Boom! Exclamation mark. After removing the last wisp of alien sword energy, the spirit bell almost turned into a ball of aqua blue light, and the magic power was agitated, and suddenly a melodious sound was emitted. This sound was deep and heavy, and compared with the original crispness, it had an inexplicable majestic and solemnity. Circles of invisible ripples vibrated in the air, deafening, and lasted for a long time, as if even the soul was shocked by the sound. It was like a sword of wisdom slashing at the soul, cutting off all the dust and distracting thoughts, and the sound of the bell was ethereal and fairy-like. The power that directly acts on the soul can attack and kill the enemy, and it can also enlighten the way of Tao. Li Quanqing exhaled a breath of turbid air, his eyes were clear, and his pupils were frighteningly bright. This time he really picked up a treasure. The sound of the bell gradually subsided, and with a click, the pottery jar filled with animal milk shattered, and a greedy little cat covered with milk stains slid out from the gap. Jinyan, whose eyes were confused, as if he had just woken up. He sat there with his two hind legs spread out, his belly was round and his tail was wagging. Tiger's power. Jinyan, who Rishan, loved to drink animal milk the most. Maturity. 5%. You little guy, you are addicted to drinking milk. Are you going to be the emperor of animal milk in the future? Li Quanqing found it funny and used the water to wash the little tiger cub. Seeing that he was going to take a bath, the tiger cub's face was full of resistance. His forepaws clung to the edge of the table and refused to let go. Unfortunately, he was no match for the hateful black hand that fell from the sky. In the end, the golden fur exploded, the whole little tiger cub became fatter, and was thrown into the warm and soft tiger's den. Not far from the tiger's den, there was another nest, which contained the eggs of the king feng crane, filled with spiritual sand and constant temperature talismans. At this time, after being baptized by the sound of the bell, an eggshell cracked, and a bald crane baby emerged. The little king feng crane looked no different from a newly born chick, with pink and tender skin, only a layer of light yellow fluff on its body, and two thin and long legs. Chirp. The king feng crane opened its beak and called out. Before it even opened its eyes, it knew to find someone to feed it. Its pointed mouth opened, which was even bigger than its head, and it kept calling while trembling. Li Quanqing took out the prepared food, which was some kind of mixed liquid food, and fed it drop by drop into the baby crane's mouth. After eating and drinking, the baby crane raised its butt and lay in the eggshell to sleep soundly. It was also very greedy. At this time, Li Quanqing had the energy to check the changes in the Zhenhe bell. The originally ice blue bell became deeper and deeper, with a sense of blue like the sea. The sunlight outside the window was reflected on the patterned surface, sparkling, as if it was constantly changing. Hey, why do I feel that the crack has become smaller? Is it an illusion? Li Quanqing stared at it for a long time before he realized that it was not his illusion. Under the nourishment of the blue sea's magic power, the Zhenhe bell was indeed slowly recovering itself. At the crack, strands of magic power were entangled and intertwined. Looking through the cross-section, one could vaguely see a blurry little word emerging. It seemed to be a scripture. Li Quanqing enlarged the Zhenhe bell and wanted to take a closer look, but unfortunately the font was still many times smaller than an ant, making him dizzy. It should be, because the big bell has not been repaired completely. The auctioneer was right. I really found an ancient wonderful scripture. Li Quanqing was very happy and couldn't help but smile. This change was possible because he discovered the remaining sword energy and eliminated it all. Secondly, it was also because of the blue sea tide rising technique. This technique was quite compatible with the Zhenhe bell, making the spirituality of the big bell completely recognize him. Could it be that the ruins where the Zhenhe bell was excavated have some connection with my Li family? Li Quanqing touched his chin and thought. He knew that the master of the Li family's ancestors was extraordinary and was suspected to be a disciple and descendant of a large sect, but unfortunately the entire sect had been destroyed long ago. In the end, he couldn't make it on the mainland, so he went to the East China Sea to open up wasteland. Forget it. It's useless to think about these things. It's too far away from me. Li Quanqing held the Zhenhe bell. He was sure that this scripture should be related to the soul. The stronger the spiritual body, the greater the probability of obtaining inheritance. Thinking of this, the boy took out the Taiyin soul nourishing water, dripped a few drops on his eyes again, and slowly meditated on the artistic conception of the bright moon on the sea. These soul nourishing waters were almost consumed, with only 2 or 3 bottles left. Fortunately, a batch of bright moon shells were raised in Ulangbo. After they matured, they could continue to be used without saving. Li Quanqing stayed on the Yishan cloud boat for a few more days. After consuming all the spiritual stones in his pocket, he returned to Yulang Island with the tiger cub in his arms and was satisfied. Chapter 70 Looking up to build a foundation. The golden flame feathered tiger ran on the embankment of Yulang Island, extremely excited. It took 4 short steps, twisting its furry buttocks. It had never seen such a wide ocean. When it was in Enling, the captured tiger cub was frozen by the ice spell and forced into hibernation. It traveled 1,000,000 miles to reach the Donglan Sea. The sea breeze blew past, blowing the tiger cub's brilliant golden hair like a ball of golden red flames burning, shining in the sun. Because the color was too bright, a big blue fish floated up from the water and spit a water arrow directly at it. As expected of a cat, the golden flame tiger jumped on the spot and dodged the attack directly. It turned its tiger-headed little head, but it didn't have time to think about what kind of weird and ugly thing it was. Densely packed large black fish floated to the surface of the water. Nearly 100 water arrows covered the sky, making a spitting sound, which was spectacular. The little tiger cub turned into a drowned tiger, and the red hair on its forehead that was burning with fire was extinguished, dripping with water. Li Quanqing stood in the distance holding 8 kingfeng crane cubs, thinking that these large black fish really loved to die. They probably didn't know that cats love to eat fish the most. Well, tigers are also big cats. Aoao. The Jinan tiger cub hated taking a bath the most and was really irritated. He spread his 4 paws and stood on the edge of the embankment and howled. It spread the white wings under its ribs and flapped them continuously. Its body seemed to have doubled in size, which looked very intimidating. Unfortunately, the large black fish was stupid, staring with dead fish eyes, not afraid at all, but just curious about why this strange thing didn't jump into the sea. It can't be that it can't swim, right? Exclamation mark. A big black fish opened its mouth and spit out water arrows again, looking mean. The seawater wetted the beautiful white wings. It was simply unbearable. The golden flame tiger completely exploded. The tiger's eyes were wide open, the eyes were bright, and a low roar came from the throat, no longer the kind of cute tiger roar. This was a real tiger or in the mountains, like rolling thunder, shaking the sky, and sweeping in all directions. Even Li Quanqing felt the oppression of the king of beasts. Boom! Exclamation mark. In the burst of fire, the tiger cub opened his mouth and spit out a ball of fire, which exploded on the sea like a cannonball, with flames rising and water splashing. The big black fish were immediately scared and ran around. Although the golden flame tiger successfully spit out a fireball, it was also thrown out by the recoil force, and its butt hit the ground, and the furry tiger face was full of confusion. AWW. What's going on, my family? Why can I suddenly spit fire? A hot fire spirit surged in the stomach, and the tiger cub choked and sneezed repeatedly, not quite used to it. Li Quanqing also didn't expect that Jinyan, who was only 2 or 3 months old, had mastered the magic of fire breathing. He was indeed gifted. King was also attracted by the movement here, and swam in front of him with his huge fins, riding the wind and waves, making a rustling sound. The size of this guy has now grown to more than 6 feet long and 2 meters in size, which can be called a behemoth. Every time the fishtail swings, it can set off a turbulent undercurrent, and when it rushes towards you, it really has a kind of overwhelming momentum. When Jinyan saw this big fish swimming over, he was directly frightened, howling, and regained his cute voice. It used all 4 claws, whooshed, and rushed behind Li Quanqing, protecting its master tightly in front of him. He only dared to show a tiger head with open eyes to peek, and the round fluffy ears were vigilantly erected. King looked at the little tiger cub, not very interested. It didn't like all the monsters and treasures with fire attributes. Li Quanqing looked at the more than 100 green jade carps following King. Each of them was very well behaved, and no one dared to spit at him. Great job, our King is now the real king of fish. Li Quanqing rubbed the fish's head, fed it some delicious elixirs, and used the sea magic power to comb King's bones, blood, and flesh again. Hiss one by one, the green water pythons also swam up from the fish pond, spitting out their snake tongues, to ask for the reward of Tei soul nourishing water. Yulan Po has rich food and abundant spiritual energy. There are many lush spiritual algae and water plants, as well as various shellfish and small fish and shrimps. But these spiritual beasts have been fed since they were young, and their mouths have been spoiled. They hate eating those water plants and algae. Li Quanqing checked the female python, and found that it had safely laid eggs, and buried them in the mud and sand in the shallow water of the fish pond. He was relieved immediately. Snap. The copper-clad crabs, that had not been seen for a long time also ran over, followed by schools of big bluefish. It seemed that the fish had found helpers. The crabs stretched out their crab legs, acting arrogantly and staring at the tiger, ready to use their claws to teach Jinyan a lesson, and stand up for their little brother. Then Li Quanqing kicked him back into the water. What level are you, daring to bully my beloved little tiger cub? Taking this opportunity, Li Quanqing fed all the spirit beasts, and found out their cultivation. The boss is mighty, green jade carp. I will climb to the top step by step, and become the strongest fish under the boss King. Cultivation, key refining level 3, 3%, maternal instinct, green water python. For the safety of my children, I must practice hard, and provide them with a more suitable living environment. Cultivation, key refining level 2, 73%, stubborn copperhead, copper armor crab. He kicked me. He actually dared to kick me just now. I must make this hateful human pay the price. Cultivation, key refining level 2, 42%. King's strength is undoubtedly the strongest, and the progress of key refining level 3 is close to 70%. Then the second batch of green jade carp, that is, King's brothers and sisters, are the strongest. They worship the moon day and night and practice hard, and all of them have advanced to the key refining level 2 realm. There are also a few particularly introverted ones that have broken through to the key refining level 3. The third batch of green jade carp has just given birth to fry, which are generally only at the key refining level 1, and the future is promising. The cultivation levels of the jade python and the copper armored crab are similar. The leaders have already reached the second level of key refining, and there are a few lagging behind, still at the first level. As for the strange thing, called the longevity turtle, it's better not to talk about it. After feeding, Li Quanqing went to check the fourth batch of green jade carp. Now these thousands of fry have grown to the thickness of 2 fingers because of the abundant food and the unique environment of Yulangbo. Each of them has grown up to be very strong. Wait another 10 months until this batch of green jade carp matures. With the blessing of hundreds of light balls, I should be able to directly break through the 8th level of key refining. Li Quanqing calculated the time. A cultivator in the late stage of key refining can break through a small realm in 1 year. This speed is really terrible. Even the top grade spiritual roots are not as fast as him. I didn't expect that in the blink of an eye. I should have to consider and prepare for my foundation building. Li Quanqing stroked the tiger cub and slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. The pressure is indeed not small, but fortunately he can still cheat. If it doesn't work, he can accumulate contribution points to see if the family can get a foundation building pill from the Shuhua sword sect. The price of foundation building pills usually starts at 30,000 spirit stones, and this is an inferior foundation building pill that can only increase the success rate by about 25%. Although spirit stones are expensive, they are not a huge sum of money for the Qingyu Li family. The most difficult thing is to obtain the channel for foundation building pills. In the tens of thousands of miles of sea area, only the Gengjin sect can refine foundation building pills, which are restricted strategic resources. Even the Tao and Situ family, which is known as the first foundation building family, also needs to buy from the Shuhua sword sect, or use foundation building spiritual objects to break through. Not to mention those casual cultivators and small family cultivators, who can't even smell the smell of foundation building pills, and can only risk their lives to build their own foundations. It's just that the number of successful cultivators is pitifully small. I'm not in a hurry. Take it step by step. Lay a good foundation for the 3 aspects of physical body, magic power, and soul, and then buy a pulse protecting pill, and I can completely break through this hurdle by myself. Li Quanqing calmed down and suppressed the thoughts that kept surging in his heart. He is a lucky guy. Maybe on the day Ao King breaks through to the late stage of key refining, he will be directly rewarded with a spiritual item for foundation building. Chapter 71 Ao King breaks through. 8 months later. The blue sea was surging, the white sand was still there, and the scenery of Yulang Island was as beautiful as before. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the embankment, practicing a defensive low-grade magic. Water lotus barrier. This was exchanged from the family's sutra pavilion. After a long time of meditation, he finally had some experience. He saw the magic power blooming at his fingertips, controlling the surging waves around him, turning into layer after layer of water shields in the shape of lotus petals, one after another. The Taoism flourished, the sea was vast, and a water lotus condensed and formed in front of him in the blink of an eye, and then turned into water drops all over the sky and fell. Drops of sea water surged, and new water lotuses evolved in an instant. The sky and the fields were all filled with water lotuses, like a dream. Pop, pop. Li Quanqing walked on the waves. Wherever his feet passed, the sea surged, and one water lotus after another bloomed, revealing the big black fish jumping in them. Lotus blooms at every step. This wonderful method is somewhat similar to the family's water curtain lotus formation. Li Quanqing touched the head of a big black carp and returned to the shore, thinking about something. Oh, how a deep and powerful roar suddenly came from the shore. The sound shook the whole field, and the branches and leaves rustled. The golden flame tiger, which has grown into a teenager, stood proudly on the beach. Its body is a circle larger than a calf, and a ball of golden red flames burned on its forehead. It is majestic and powerful. It ran over with 4 big paws. Its golden fur is like silk, and the black pattern is like rippling water. Ao, the spirit tiger rubbed Li Quanqing's trouser legs like a flatterer, and looked at the fat big black carp in his hand with a greedy look. Although this tiger cub still hates water, he loves eating fish. He often goes to the mountains and forests to dig out big earthworms as bait and catches big black carps to eat secretly. The success rate is not high. Greedy tiger, drink your milk. You can't eat this fish. Li Quanqing looked at the white light ball on the head of the big black fish and gently touched it. Harvest an adult big black fish. Reward a miniature spiritual energy ball. The light ball shattered, and the spiritual energy entered the body, but the effect was pitifully weak, almost no effect. My cultivation is too high. For me, the big black fish has lost its effect. Li Quanqing had expected this day and threw the big fish back into the sea. The big black fish that escaped the disaster flicked its tail and immediately dived into the bottom of the water and disappeared, leaving only a few ripples slowly rippling. A woo. Jinyan, who watched his lunch escape from his eyes and immediately cried out in grievance, just like a big golden hair. Cry. White kingfin cranes took off from the shore. They had just grown up not long ago and were now trying to learn to fly. The feathers on their abdomen and back are white, while their slender necks are as black as ink. Their red crowns are bright and eye-catching, and their goose yellow beaks are long and thin. They look a bit like red-crowned cranes, with upright postures, elegance, and nobility. This monster seems to have mastered the power of the wind since birth. Its broad light blue wings are holy and elegant, and the outermost circle is covered with a layer of blue-black feathers. When they flap their wings and fly, it seems as if the traces of the breeze are passing through the sky, adding a touch of mystery to it. However, it is obvious that without the guidance of their parents, these kingfin cranes are not performing very well. Pa. A kingfin crane flapped its wings and fell from the sky, trying to maintain its elegant posture, with its two long legs constantly slapping the water surface. Unfortunately, it failed in the end and fell directly into the sea with a plop. Cry. The little crane got its head out of the water, shook off the water stains on its feathers, and seemed to be fine. It looked like it was swimming leisurely on the sea, but in fact, it had already exhausted its energy. Li Quanqing's big hand fell down, grabbed the two cranes' wings, and lifted the whole kingfin crane out of the sea. Free heart, kingfin crane. I'm a small bird. I want to fly, but I can't fly. High maturity. 58%. It has grown so big in 8 months. It's really a good kid, much better than a big turtle. Li Quanqing let go of the kingfin crane, letting the frightened little guy flap his wings and run to join his brothers and sisters. These spiritual cranes are born to yearn for freedom. Their souls are unruly. They stay in the trees all day, and they are not very familiar with their master. Ao how seeing the kingfin cranes in groups, preparing to go to the mountains and forests on Yulang Island to find food, the golden flame tiger screamed. It also flapped its wings behind it, staggered, and flew up very clumsily, with its 4 tiger claws curled up into a ball, and followed behind the cranes. It looks like a husky mixed into a wolf pack. Li Quanqing did not stop him. The little tiger cub had been without the company of his tribesmen for a long time, and he really needed these little friends who also had wings. It is a tiger. It can't think that it is actually a bird, right? Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the sea, with magic power wrapped around his body, turning into a lotus platform to support his body, not sinking in water, refining the abundant essence contained in the sea water to practice. He opened his mouth and spit out a blue light. The blue light grew in the wind, and in the blink of an eye it turned into a fist-sized Zenhei bell, which rang without wind and hummed. Wherever the sound wave passed, the sea surface suddenly became calm and smooth like a mirror. Li Quanqing rubbed it carefully and saw that the crack on the surface of the bell wall had been restored to almost complete, so fine that it was invisible. He used his magic power, like the most careful craftsman in the world, and bit by bit, he finally made up the last defect. Ding! Exclamation mark. The bell roared, and it rang out slowly, as if the sound of waves from all over the world was sweeping across the world, and it spread out 10 miles away, and it lasted for a long time, and it was solemn and majestic. On the surface of the Zenhei bell, the pattern seemed to come alive, like rippling water, and countless golden runes appeared in the sparkling waves. Bo! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing looked at it with the power of his soul, as if he had broken through the barrier of a waterfall, and finally got a glimpse of the specific content of this scripture. The art of nourishing mind and forging swords. Nourishing mind and strengthening spirit, soul, and soul forging swords. This is an ancient scripture for cultivating and strengthening the soul, and forging a sword of mind and soul, which can kill others and me. With this scripture, plus the Tai and soul nourishing water, I have no worries about the spiritual consciousness difficulty and the 3 difficulties of building the foundation. Li Quanqing was secretly happy, and suddenly realized that there was another content after the scripture. Spiritual weapons and hate sword. This is a method of refining a spiritual weapon, which is naturally compatible with the Zenhei Bell, and can also be entrusted with the Sword of Divine Mind cultivated by the art of nourishing mind and forging swords. Souls are invisible, and are most vulnerable to the invasion and damage of external objects such as Gangfeng Yinsha. Instead, it is better to rely on physical objects, so that they can grow slowly. When the time comes, a Zenhei sword will be slashed out. On the surface, it looks like a sharp flying sword spell, but secretly it is cutting people's souls and killing people invisibly. It is hard to guard against. Unfortunately, spiritual tools are still too far away for me. I can't even refine the best magic tools. Li Quanqing touched his chin, considering whether to hand over the refining method of Zenhei sword to the third elder. With his old man's refining skills, he might be able to refine it. But in the end, he gave up the idea because his cultivation was not strong enough. Sometimes, it is better to keep some of your own secrets. Just as he patted his butt and prepared to go back to sleep, in the depths of Ulanbo, there was a sudden rise of spiritual energy fluctuations, and a light blue demonic energy rushed into the sky, stirring up the wind and clouds, vaguely turning into the appearance of a fish dragon. Is this a green jade carp has broken through? In the blink of an eye, Li Quanqing reacted. There was only one possibility for such a big commotion. Aoking is going to break through. He couldn't wait to run over there, walking on the water, and could hardly suppress his inner joy. He had waited too long for this day. When Li Quanqing arrived, Aoking had already successfully broken through. His huge body swelled again, and the golden scales on his back shone brightly, and his whole body was full of demonic energy. Wisps of white air came out from under its scales, swaying, and finally condensed into an attractive ball of light. With a snap, Li Quanqing was almost impatient and slapped the golden patterned green jade carp firmly on the forehead. Harvest a golden patterned green jade carp in the middle stage of key refining, and reward the second level talisman's Iohei sword talisman. Right square bracket. Chapter 72 Hunting. Aoking was very confused at this moment, with his two fish eyes full of innocent and pitiful expressions. But it must not dare to get angry at its master. With his tail swung, he was ready to beat the little guys. These guys have been a little lazy in their practice recently and really need to be beaten. Without hard practice day and night, how can fish jump into dragons in the future? Xiaohei Sword Talisman, second level attack talisman, comparable to a foundation building sword cultivator with all his strength. The power is enough to turn the river and sea, and the sword breaks through Lingsu. Li Quanqing touched the invisible light ball in his hand, and he felt happy. He originally thought that he would give the reward of the King Gaiuama refining method. Unexpectedly, Aoking gave him a surprise directly. The foundation building trump card, +1. My previous guess was correct. Spirit beasts will also be rewarded with a ball of light when they break through the middle stage of key refining. What if it is an adult demon beast in the early stage of key refining? Will it also have a ball of light when it breaks through the middle stage under my care? Li Quanqing thought maybe he could buy an adult demon beast in the future and try to develop new functions of the golden finger. He stuffed the ball of light into the storage bag and crushed it. A talisman as blue as the sea appeared out of thin air, with a sharp edge. The shape of the Xiaohei sword talisman is very special. It looks like a shrunken flying sword, surging with a sea-like glow, as if it was condensed by infinite sword energy. The amazing sword energy is about to burst out, which is simply daunting. Li Quanqing stroked the sword talisman, and felt that it had something in common with the green water sword energy. Comprehending it day and night will definitely help his sword practice. But the problem is, he is not a pure sword cultivator. Why should he comprehend and practice it himself? Li Quanqing touched the dozen or so green jade carps in the second batch one by one. Their cultivation is also fast, and they will be able to break through the middle stage of key refining in 3 or 4 months. Come on, whether my jade water sword art can break through the great perfection realm depends on you all. Li Quanqing said in his heart, taking out a large handful of spiritual bait and feeding these guys well. He was looking forward to it. Nourish the mind and forge the sword art. Dripping the last bottle of Taiyin soul nourishing water, Li Quanqing closed his eyes and meditated, and began to practice this ancient scripture. The sound of waves roared, and he once again visualized the vision of a bright moon on the sea. The vast sea was endless, and the waves surged gently, making a soothing sound, echoing softly in his ears. The stars disappeared, and in this deep night, a round of Taiyan moon slowly rose. The moonlight was as bright as snow, pouring on the sea, rippling the waves, like countless tiny silver beads dancing. The sea and the moon set off each other, forming a beautiful picture. Li Quanqing lowered his head. The sea surface was as bright as a mirror, but what was reflected was nothingness. He seemed to not exist in this world, just a wandering soul. Nourish your mind, and strengthen your spirit. Forge your thoughts into a sword, calm the sea with one sword, and quell the rebellion in Donglan. The scripture flowed through his heart like water. Li Quanqing practiced silently, trying to cut out the strands of distracting thoughts and turn them into an invisible hard sword. But in the moonlight, a glass-like thought emerged, flickering like a firefly. Then came the second point, the third point. There were more and more thoughts, connecting the dots into a line, as if outlining the veins of a killing sword, with endless desires. Clang! Exclamation mark. The next moment, countless chaotic thoughts suddenly broke out, sweeping all directions, and all thoughts were instantly annihilated into the invisible. Failed. Li Quanqing was not discouraged, but tried again and again, and the firefly-like thoughts gathered like sand again. It was not until the effect of the Taiyan soul-nourishing water dissipated that he completely withdrew from the meditative state. Whoosh! Li Quanqing opened his eyes, and there seemed to be a vision of the bright moon and the vast sea in his pupils. His face was pale but excited. Suddenly, an invisible sword shot out from his eyes, sweeping with murderous aura, completely shattering all the visions. It is called a sword, but it is more appropriate to describe it as an embroidery needle. A sword of divine thought as thin as a silver needle, invisible and invisible, moves at will, shuttles through the air, and is hard to defend against. Although this wisp of sword of thought is indeed a little mini, it is really a good introduction. Ding. Ding. The Zenhei bell rang, and suddenly a ray of light was emitted, wrapping the sword of thought, and drilling into the interior of the bell. The blue water waves enveloped this wisp of thought, like a young swallow returning to its nest, and Li Quanqing felt an unprecedented sense of security. It was as if the soul was slowly growing under the nourishment of the spiritual weapon. Li Quanqing held the small bell tightly, and shook it gently. Waves of bell sounds swept across the sea in all directions, and the water rippled, and the sound was quite harsh. During this process, his soul power was also released, turning into a sound wave attack, directly acting on the soul in the enemy's Niwen palace. One sword to calm the sea. This divine soul scripture is indeed in the same vein as the Zenhei bell. Li Quanqing took out the soul nourishing water, and was about to continue practicing, when he suddenly realized that the Shanking Rushu formation on Yulong Island had been triggered. He frowned, took out the formation plates to check, and found that it was a flying sword made of yellow paper, which kept hitting the surface of the formation pattern, stirring up the spiritual light. First class top grade, flying sword transmission sound note. This is a valuable thing that can transmit sound over 1,000 miles. Who would give him this? Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows, stepped on the lotus platform, and came to the edge of the formation. He output a ray of mana through the cover, and activated the spirit talisman. Yun Yang's voice came from the talisman, inviting him to participate in a hunt among the disciples of the foundation building family, to go to the island, to hunt monsters and hone his fighting experience. The sound echoed 5 times in succession, and finally with a hiss, the sword talisman ignited without wind, and turned into ashes that fluttered down. Li Quanqing originally didn't want to participate in this matter, but the monster that Yun Yangzi invited him to hunt made the young man quite excited. Thunderhorn Python. This is a well-known high-quality monster in the nearby sea area. Like the golden flame feather tiger and the golden patterned green jade carp, it can easily cultivate to the late stage of key refining. More importantly, the thunderhorn python is a social monster, and often a group occupies a spiritual island to hunt and live. This also means that, after taking down a nest of thunderhorn pythons, you will definitely get a varying number of cubs. I wonder what kind of light ball reward a thunder attributed monster can give? Li Quanqing's heart was pounding. He touched his 4 second level spiritual talismans, the water dragon pendant on his waist, the green water shuttle lying in the storage bag, and the late stage of body refining copperbone body, and the one eye mirror that can call for foundation building at any time. Do it. But going alone is not safe after all. Li Quanqing thought about it, took out a few sound transmission notes, threw them out from the formation, and called his friends. Fortunately, the 2 demon hunters, Li Quanqing and Li Quanmo, happened to be resting in Baoking Fang recently, and readily agreed. The boy thought about it, and sent another sound transmission note to Li Quanqiu. The girl had just spent all her savings to break through the 6th level of key refining some time ago, and now she was short of spiritual stones and cultivation resources. Even for the family cultivators, the corpse of a 7th level thunder-horned python can also be said to be valuable. Sure enough, Li Quanqiu responded soon, and went there happily. As for Li Quanfu, this kid's cultivation is too weak and his experience in fighting is insufficient. It's better for him to stay in the market honestly. I only lack spiritual beast cubs. Those thunder-horned python corpses can be distributed to them. Am I training my own team? Li Quanqing thought of the 3rd elder who was the head of the weapon refining hall, and held great power, and couldn't help laughing. Thanks to fellow Daoist HJC for 5600 points, Pasabi Chengyang for 5000 points, Xiaozahan for 1500 points, Never Ask for 900 points, Shuanglian for 300 points, AIZUO Feng Shirole for 100 points, Yu Yi for 100 points, Xiao Shang for 100 points, and Han Yuji Ui for 100 points. All readers are so kind, especially fellow Daoists HJC and Pasabi Chengyang. I was so moved that I burst into tears. Chapter 73 Purple Blood Sea. Aoking, you must take good care of the house while I'm away. Li Quanqing stood on the embankment, with a stern face, trying to act like a parent. Aoking blew a bubble and nodded absent-mindedly. It stared with a pair of lifeless dead fish eyes, seemingly serious, but in fact it was already thinking about how to lead its younger brothers to surf in the depths of Yulangbo. Looking at the golden-veined green jade carp who was listening attentively, Li Quanqing was very satisfied, and felt that he had done a good job in teaching by example, since he was a child. Every time he left the fish pond, Aoking could take good care of the house and he didn't have to worry too much. Tiger, do you want to go with us? Li Quanqing waved at the majestic tiger demon in the distance. This hunt will definitely have a lot of demon beast meat, which is very good for the growth of spiritual pets. Ayo, how the golden flame tiger roared in a baby voice, using all 4 claws, and washed up the tree, so fast that it looked like an afterimage. A furry tail hung down from the shade of the trees, revealing 2 small bells, clearly indicating refusal. I don't know who this guy learned this from. He stays in the tree all day long like a house tiger, and even built a super large tiger den in the tree canopy. He is not afraid that when he is sleeping, he will sneeze out a fireball and set the whole forest on fire. Li Quanqing asked around, but unfortunately no spirit beast was willing to go out. The environment of Yulangpo is too beautiful, why should it be exposed to the wind and sun? The boy sighed and kicked the lazy big turtle shell next to him. In this case, if you don't move, it's decided to be you. One Shao Turtle. Because of the slow nature of this spirit turtle, Li Quanqing gave him a name, Moving, Motionless Longevity Turtle. Were you calling my name just now? Damn it. Someone actually wants a turtle to leave its beloved mud bed and quilt. Maturity. 19%. Your growth rate is too slow. The book says that fighting with monsters more often will help the growth and breakthrough of spirit beasts. No discussion. Li Quanqing even used his bronze bone body to transform into a bronze giant and carried the dark green turtle away. Raw, the longevity turtle failed to struggle and had to accept his fate. He let out a low roar and agreed with grievance. Li Quanqing was satisfied and threw the mountain-like spirit turtle into the sea. He would not allow any spirit beast to lie flat and rot. All of them should roll up their teeth like Aoking. Longevity turtle, let's go. Li Quanqing sat on the wide and flat turtle shell and patted the turtle's head. Motionless, spitting bubbles, reluctantly, he paddled his 4 paws towards Baoking Fang City. Baoking Fang City, dock area. Li Quanqiu and the other 2 were already waiting. Standing next to them were several Z family cultivators headed by Zi Hangyu, all of whom had reached the 6th level of key refining. A building boat with the logo of the Yun family of Zioyao Island was docked in the deep water area. It was the vehicle for their trip this time. Dao Aoli is here. You are the slowest this time. Yun Yangzi stood on the deck and laughed heartily. Yun Jizi behind him had already broken through the 7th level of key refining. It's all because of the tepid temperament of this mount. It swims too slowly. It's not as convenient as a spiritual boat to escape. The young man in green robe sat on the turtle's back and laughed. From the looks of it, this should be a longevity turtle. Dao is so elegant that he actually raised such a strange thing. Yun Yangzi thought of the examples of longevity turtles that outlasted cultivators in ancient books, and his eyes were weird. Li Quanqing was a little surprised. Although this guy was a top-level 2nd generation cultivator, he did have real skills. He could recognize the species of the longevity turtle at a glance, which shows that he has already mastered all kinds of monsters in the world of cultivation. Li Quanqing looked at Li Quanmo and raised his eyebrows. You have broken through the 7th level of key refining? Congratulations. This guy's indeed a genius, second only to Li Quanqing in the direct lineage, and he is valued by the 3rd elder and practices the fire jade vajra body. With the tilt of family resources and fighting monsters day and night, he became more and more taciturn, and there was a scar at the corner of his eye. It's nothing. It's far less fast than your cultivation speed, an ordinary body cultivator. Li Quanmo shook his head slightly, feeling that he was mediocre from the bottom of his heart. Are these two guys deliberately showing off? Li Quanqing couldn't help but clench the wine gourd in his hand and had the urge to swing his fist and hit someone. Li Quanqiu, standing next to him, also had a deep understanding. If the two people in front of him were considered ordinary, then what about those who barely broke through the 6th level of key refining? Are they considered waste in the world of cultivation? Without further ado, everyone, please board the spiritual boat. It's time for us to set off. Yun Yangzi extended his fair and slender hand and made an invitation gesture. Li Quanqing and Zi Hangyu nodded to each other as a sign of greeting. The Li and Zi families have always been on good terms, and they will definitely help each other in this monster hunting. When they boarded the deck, in addition to the 6 cultivators of the Yun family, the Wang family of Tonghe Island was also there, with a hint of pride on their faces. Li Quanqing looked at Wang Gujian. Next to him stood an old man in a green robe with white hair and a youthful face, his aura emanating from him without any concealment. 9th level of key refining. This was the highest level of cultivation among the cultivators present. No wonder the Wang family was so proud. This cultivator of the 9th level of key refining is called Shuleo, a casual cultivator who has surrendered to the little pilking Wangu and was sent by him to protect his younger brother. Li Quanqiu explained in a low voice, his eyes full of envy. Let alone her, even Yun Yangzi had a trace of deep jealousy in his eyes. A cultivator of the 9th level of key refining is not a piece of cake. In an ordinary foundation building family, he can be regarded as an elder with real power. Only a foundation building seed like Wangu can attract such a master to join him and work for him, which is mutually beneficial. Li Quanqing nodded slightly. He has many trump cards, so he is not very afraid. The Wang family of Tonghe Island currently has only one foundation building cultivator, which is not as good as the Qingyu Li family. If this tree elder is blind and offends him, he will teach him a lesson with a sword. Woo. The building ship started, and countless formations lit up, turning into a layer of light shield covering the deck, and began to set off towards the open sea. Everyone, the location of this hunt is located in the Purple Blood Sea, more than 8,000 miles away. I don't need to say much about its reputation. Yun Yangzi smiled and took out a jade slip and handed it to everyone. The Thunderhorn Python tribe is powerful and should not be underestimated. I have specially prepared the Wind Spirit Snake Binding formation to suppress it with the formation, which is enough to weaken the strength of this group of snake monsters by 30% to 40%. This is the operation method of the Wind Spirit Snake Binding formation. You can comprehend it in detail. In addition to the Thunderhorn Python, we can also find some weak monster tribes to practice first. This kind of monster hunting has been held many times. It is a gathering for the 2nd generation. to show their reputation and hone their fighting skills. All arrangements are very complete and detailed, and safe. It's actually the Purple Blood Sea. Li Quanqing touched the jade slip, and was very interested in this location. The foundation building cave, that his uncle Li Yuheng participated in, happened to be located in the Purple Blood Sea. The water in this sea area is light purple. Looking down from the sea surface, a trace of purple-red air is boiling in the mud on the seabed, which is particularly strange. It is rumored that thousands of years ago, a peerless monster fell here, and its blood dyed the sea red for thousands of miles, leaving behind this purple blood phenomenon. Therefore, the Purple Blood Sea is rich in various monster resources. Although it is in the territory of the human race, monsters are rampant, and even many monster hunters are very afraid. However, with the excavation of the foundation building cave, this sea area was once bustling for a while, but now it is gradually cooling down. After the ship sailed for several days, finally, a touch of light purple shimmering light appeared at the end of the field of vision, and a faint smell of blood lingered at the tip of the nose, which was clearly distinguished from the ordinary blue sea water. The Purple Blood Sea has arrived. Thanks to fellow Taoist Zazen for the 5,000 points of reward. It really cost you a lot of money. Thank you very much. Today, the author who failed has reached the realm of Sanjiang, grabbed it, refined it in an instant, and built a strong foundation in the near future. Chapter 74 Wind Spirit Snake Binding Formation. Wind Spirit Snake Binding Formation. Li Quanqing played with the jade-green formation flag in his hand. It felt cool and light to the touch. As the flag fluttered, there was a breeze following like a shadow. This is a first-class high-quality formation. It can perform the wind spirit binding method to reduce the speed of monsters. It has a miraculous effect on extremely agile python-like monsters such as the thunderhorn python. Yun Yangzi held a jade formation plate with wind patterns carved on it and talked freely. The entire formation has a formation-based spirit plate, 4 wind spirit main flags, and several small flags. They are handed over to the 3 Taoist friends and the tree elder to operate together. In theory, the formation plate should be controlled by the cultivator with the highest cultivation. However, this is a large formation prepared by the Yun family themselves, and Yun Yangzi is not confident to let others operate it. All cultivators were assigned a formation flag, but some were large and some were small, and some were primary and some were secondary. The one in Li Quanqing's hand was the main flag, which was more than 3 feet long, and could be used as a short spear. The flags were square, embroidered with dense blue and silver patterns, and felt cold and metallic. The flags in Li Quanqing's hands were much smaller, triangular in shape, only slightly larger than the mouth of a bowl, delicate and small, and moved automatically without wind. Fellow Taoists, let's get familiar with them first, so as not to be in a hurry on the battlefield. More than 20 monks stood on the deck, the lowest of whom had a 6th level of key refining, and there were 7 monks in the late stage of key refining. This force was enough to destroy some small families. But Li Quanqing poured his mana into the jade pole in his hand, and the flags fluttered immediately, and the patterns of the formations glowed with spiritual light, reflecting each other with the formation plate. This kind of portable formation is quite convenient to use, and you only need to pour mana into it without thinking. The disadvantage is that it is relatively weak and cannot borrow the power of the island's spiritual veins, and the price is much more expensive. Fortunately, the Yun family made a lot of money through the Xiaoyao conference, so they can take out this precious formation to show off to their friends. Wind Spirit Snake Binding Formation. Start. Yun Yangzi held the formation plate in his hand and suddenly shouted, commanding all the formation flags and magic power, and combined them into one place, turning into a blue and silver two-color formation covering 100 feet in radius. The formation pattern covered the space in all directions, and gusts of breeze whistled out, turning into light blue wind ropes mixed with silver hairs, densely packed, blocking the void. This is when the power of this formation is the strongest. As the coverage area expands, the power of the snake binding formation will gradually decrease, and it will be enough to cover a 3-mile area at most. Yun Yangzi opened his mouth and pointed to the longevity turtle lazily basking in the sun not far away. Fellow Taoists, please look. These wind spirit ropes can bind monsters and capture them easily. A wind spirit rope jumped out like a python, at a very fast speed, almost indistinguishable to the naked eye. The wind ropes were wrapped around the forelimbs, and the longevity turtle was tied up tightly. Raw. However, this guy was originally gentle and lazy. Although he was tied up and couldn't move, he still didn't react. To outsiders, it seemed that the wind spirit snake binding formation had no effect at all, and the small longevity turtle, which was not even a demon beast, could ignore it. With a chuckle, Zihangyu laughed very unkindly, and her beautiful big eyes curved into crescents. Yun Yang's face was slightly embarrassed, and the spell changed, and suddenly used another change of the formation disc. The wind rope was wrapped tightly, directly tied up the turtle shell, and the spirit turtle was hooked into the air, and the huge body swayed back and forth. The longevity turtle tilted its head, except for a little dizziness, it still didn't react, and its foreclaws were motionless. Could this be the legendary tortoise shell binding? Li Quanqing couldn't help laughing, and spoke to help him out. Dao, my spiritual pet is just lazy. Let's change to another monster to practice the effect. Okay. Yun Yangzi nodded, as if resigned to his fate, put the longevity turtle down from midair again, and took out the sea chart to study. As the initiator of this hunt, he has put in a lot of effort. Through various channels of the Yun family, he investigated the monsters in the entire Purple Blood Sea. Everyone was preparing to choose a group of monsters in the early stage of key refining to practice with. With a bang, the formation guarding the building ship and the spiritual boat was suddenly triggered, and the vibration sounded one after another, as if something was constantly hitting the bottom of the boat. It's a purple blood shark. A cultivator observed for a moment, and saw the dark purple shark fin exposed above the water, and immediately shouted excitedly. Everyone heard this, and couldn't help showing a look of surprise. The purple blood shark is a kind of vicious monster unique to the Purple Blood Sea. Its cultivation is only in the early stage of key refining, and it often moves in groups. They are violent, low in intelligence, and eat everything, whether human or monster. As long as the purple blood shark smells the delicious blood of the enemy, it will keep chasing until one of them dies. There are a total of 18 purple blood sharks, which are just right for training. Yun Yangzi was delighted. These monsters could not damage the spiritual boat at all. It is not convenient to fight on the water. How about fishing a few? Everyone nodded. Get up. He stretched out his finger, and immediately the wind spirit ropes flew out, like a flexible fishing line, and caught 4 purple blood sharks on the deck. The 4 families present were just divided equally. The purple blood shark left the sea, still extremely ferocious, rolling on the deck, opening its bloody mouth, and biting at everyone, with a ferocious look. Bind. Li Quanqing urged the formation flag in his hand, and immediately the wind spirit binding rushed up, binding the big shark tightly. No matter how hard the purple-blooded shark struggled, it still rolled helplessly on the deck, splashing water. Who wants to fight? Li Quanqing looked at his friends. Everyone shook their heads. Such a monster was too weak. Even a young monk who had just entered the key refining stage could deal with it. They were really not interested. Li Quanqing kicked the longevity turtle. Don't move, you go. Don't move opened his mouth, and wanted to yell at people, but in the end he swallowed the swear words in his throat. It was too cowardly. This longevity turtle was really timid. Facing the big shark, that was tied up and motionless, it was still cautious, and stepped on the deck to approach. Although its body size was comparable to a small mountain, it gave people a sense of tiptoeing. The purple-blooded shark stared with a pair of scarlet pupils, as if it had known its fate, and stared at the enemy viciously. When the turtle approached, the purple-blooded shark suddenly let out a loud cry, opened its big mouth full of sharp teeth and bit towards Don't Move. The longevity turtle was frightened instantly, and retreated madly at an unprecedented speed to escape, then curled up its claws, and shrunk its body into its shell without moving. It was actually playing dead. Li Quanqing was speechless. If Aoking was here, if the purple blood shark dared to yell and threaten it, he would directly slap it with his fishtail, and then use water arrows to serve it. It would teach it to be a fish again in a minute. Dare to bully my turtle, you have already killed yourself. Li Quanqing put his fingers together like swords, and a wisp of green water sword energy flew out, ending the life of the purple blood shark, and blood splattered. Raw. The longevity turtle dared to stick its head out again at this time, and its eyes rolled around, and it ran over, and stepped on the vicious shark with its claws, showing off its power. It interpreted the 4 words of bullying the weak, and fearing the strong to the fullest. Chapter 75 Thunder-Horned Python. On the deck, the bodies of shark monsters were piled up like a small mountain, and purple-red blood flowed down the wounds like a twisted little snake. "Hey, come and eat." Li Quanqing cut off a piece of white and pink fish belly meat, which contained rich demonic energy, and prepared to feed it to the longevity turtle. Even though it became a demon shark, the flesh and blood still had an unpleasant smell of urine, and no cultivator was willing to eat it. On the contrary, the longevity turtle ate it with relish, and didn't dislike it at all. For demon beasts, the fastest way to practice is to eat the flesh and blood of other demon beasts, and refine the demonic energy and blood essence contained in them. Swallow. Swallow it all for me. After swallowing a purple blood shark, he ate until his belly was round, and he lay on the deck comfortably and fell asleep. I hope it can increase its maturity a few more points. When can this guy roll up? Li Quanqing touched the motionless longevity turtle, and his heart was helpless to the extreme. He really wanted to know what kind of reward such a strange demon beast would give out at that time. The first battle was a success, and the group was very satisfied with the power of the wind spirit snake binding formation. Yun Yangzi was a cautious person. He spent a month with everyone to run in, and selected those monster tribes with very weak cultivation to hunt. When everyone cooperated with each other tacitly, they finally started the ship and headed towards the final destination. The Thunderhorn Python is a group of monsters. When they grow up, they have the 7th level of key refining. A snake king is often born in the tribe. It has a cruel and domineering personality. It likes to hunt monsters and eat them. The Thunderhorn Python advances by swallowing lightning. There are often a lot of lightning-struck trees growing near their residences. Thunder crystals are bred in their bodies. Physical cultivators can refine pure thunder power to temper their bodies. Li Quanqing played with a jade slip, which recorded the detailed records and habits of the Thunderhorn Python. Know yourself and know the enemy, and you will never be in danger in 100 battles. I didn't expect that the Thunderhorn Python would actually produce a natural treasure like Thunder Crystal, which can help the body cultivators advance. Li Quanqing was quite interested. After the copper armor body was fully developed, various iron ores had lost their effect on him. If he wanted to cultivate a jade bone body and be comparable to the 9th level body cultivators of key refining, he had to swallow a large amount of various precious jades. He consumed too many spiritual stones, and his progress was much slower than before. I once used a thunder crystal, and the effect was very good. It removed the violent thunder power, leaving only the neutral and peaceful thunder elite. Li Quanmo spoke on the side, holding a ball of extremely high temperature beast fire in his palm, and the fiery red lines on the surface of his skin twisted and grew, obviously practicing. Old demo, you are really rich. I haven't even touched this kind of advanced stuff. Li Quanqing smacked his lips and gulped down the red wine made from the blood of monsters, refining the essence and blood in it to strengthen the true body of 100 beasts. The body cultivators were not only poor in their pockets, but also had more and more unruly personalities, and there was almost no time to relax. Their brains seemed to be filled with muscles, and they were thinking about how to become stronger and challenge stronger opponents all the time. What a coincidence. I also need thunder crystals, and then everyone will rely on their own abilities. Li Quanqing showed his arm muscles, a layer of bronze color blooming, revealing a cold breath like the immortal metal. What a strong physique. The body refining technique you practice is definitely not ordinary, not weaker than the fire jade diamond body passed down to me by the 3rd elder. Li Quanmo was eager to try, and his pupils were full of fighting spirit. This technique is just ordinary. Although you don't have to endure hardships, temper your muscles and bones, and experience all kinds of fighting and grinding, it consumes too many spiritual stones. Li Quanqing took out a piece of Hoang warm jade and held it in his mouth. With the help of the jade energy contained in it, he practiced, and his skin faintly glowed with a jade light. You rich dog, what are you showing off? Look at what you can do. Li Quanmo and Li Quanqing turned their heads away at the same time. They shouldn't have brought up this topic. Out of sight, out of mind. Li Quanqing was also sitting next to them, holding the cold jade in his hand, and practicing the ice purity art, with a smile on his face, looking at these three lively guys. Sure enough, men are young until they die. After sailing for another day and night, Yan Yangzi suddenly said, "Fellow Taoists, we have arrived." In the surging purple sea water, a bare island stood in front, with large rocks exposed. The sky above the island is shrouded in dark clouds all year round, and the vegetation is very sparse, just like a very dangerous place. The air is filled with an uneasy atmosphere, and everything is silent. Rumble. In the dead silence, the silver-white thunder suddenly tore through the clouds, fell from the sky, bursting with dazzling lightning, and struck the center of the island. The spiritual energy here is extremely violent, and the yin and yang are reversed. It is a natural place of thunder punishment, which is most suitable for the growth of thunder-horned pythons. They have driven out all the monsters, and occupied the island alone. Except for collective hunting, they usually stay in the snake nest. If you want to hunt, you need to lure the thunder-horned pythons out of their nests first. Li Quanqing agreed with this approach. Not to mention the complex terrain of the snake nest. If he accidentally killed the thunder-horned python cubs during the fight, he would be heartbroken. Everyone hid their bodies, covered up the smell on their bodies, and approached carefully. In the center of the island, they saw a high hill. There were snake paths intertwined around, and there were charred marks left by lightning everywhere, and from time to time, you could see the remaining scales and broken bones. Yan Yangzi was well prepared. First, he took out a piece of incense and lit it, and encouraged the strong wind to blow the smoke into the snake nest. Even if the demon python was strong and did not faint, its mind would become drowsy, stupid and dumb. Others sprinkled various fresh monster blood on the soil and took out several delicious monster corpses and piled them 100 feet away. This kind of predation trap is very primitive, but it is enough to deal with monsters with low intelligence. Hiss, sure enough, or thunder-horned python was fooled soon, and it swam out with its huge body twisting and turning, biting the monster meat into its mouth. The thunder-horned python's body is 5 or 6 feet long, covered with thick blue and purple snake scales, with a single horn on its head, and looks very majestic. From time to time, small arcs of electricity exploded on the surface of their snake scales, and wherever they passed, they split the wild grass and dead branches into black charcoal. There are a total of 17 thunder-horned pythons. Start. Seeing that no new monsters came out, Yan Yangzi immediately took out the array plate and activated it. Buzz! Exclamation mark. The wind spirit binding snake array condensed in an instant, covering the 4 directions, and wind spirit ropes flew out one after another, binding the group of monster pythons tightly. Hiss. The thunderhorn python was indeed a 7th level key refining monster. Astonishing power burst out from its huge body. It was not tied to death, but its speed was much slower. When they saw the enemy, they were not afraid, but took the initiative to open their bloody mouths and bite. Kill. After a month of tempering, Li Quanqing did have a more decisive temperament. He raised his hand and cast a defensive talisman. The golden light turned into a light shield to protect the 4 directions, and everyone was covered with a layer of copper armor. Fuck. Is this what it feels like to be a dog owner? I feel so powerful now. Li Quanmo touched the bronze armor on his body and felt an unparalleled power surging in his body. His eyes were frighteningly bright. Take my punch. He roared, waving his fist as big as a casserole, and smashed it angrily. Faster than him was the kingly sword that flew out of Li Quanqing's storage bag. Green water sword art. The flying swords came and went, dropping drops of sword energy like water waves, with a sharp edge that cut through everything. The slow-moving thunder-horned python had no time to react, and was cut by the sword energy with many wounds on its body. Its internal organs were destroyed, and it was killed directly. Li Quanmo looked resentful and said nothing. He went to find the second thunder-horned python again. Li Quanqing did not eat alone. After killing 3 demon pythons in succession, he stopped and supported the tribesmen. Li Quanmo was at the 7th level of key refining, and was a body refining cultivator. He was strong enough to hunt alone. Li Quanqiu and Li Quanzhi were a little weak. They had to work together to kill a thunder-horned python. All the people present were family cultivators. Their spells and magic tools were top-notch. Their combat power was strong enough to sweep through the snake group. With the restraint and suppression of the formation, it took only a few minutes for 17 thunder-horned pythons to die one after another. Raw. At this time, the remaining thunder-horned pythons in the nest seemed to react. An extremely large demon python rushed out. Its body was 10 feet long. It was the thunder-horned python king, with a strong aura and the 8th level of key refining. Seeing so many of its people die tragically, the demon python suddenly became furious, and blood was flowing out of its pupils. Thunder suddenly burst out from the horn on its forehead. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.